Chapter 531. And Lin's mouth gaped open as he stared at the woman before him. The woman before him was none other than Cassidy, and she seemed to have made up her mind to agree to establish a slave contract with Lin. It made sense. A return to Void Stage mighty figure would be willing to become the slave of a soul formation stage cultivator. No one would dare to believe this. Furthermore, the two of them were enemies. So this was even more incredible. If a novelist from the Kingdom of the Nine States were to write a story like this, he would definitely be denounced as a lunatic. However, this was reality, and reality was often more bizarre than stories. She couldn't live without Lin. No, to put it more accurately, she couldn't live without Lin's blood. She was addicted. Not only was her body dependent on Lin, but even her soul was also dependent on him. You are my only source of light. I can't live without you. Cassidy stared at Lin with a heartfelt expression. How did you find my location? Lin was struck by a headache. A faint blush appeared on Cassidy's face. I can't forget your aura. The Blood Tribe is very adept at tracking auras, so it wasn't difficult for me to find your location. Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. This sticky woman really couldn't be underestimated. However, seeing as she was willing to sign a slave contract, none of that would be an issue. Have you really made up your mind? Lin asked. Yes. Cassidy nodded with a solemn expression. Lin made a hand seal, and a shimmering golden drop of blood essence flew out from between his fingers. Cassidy immediately flew toward the drop of blood essence with an excited expression before swallowing it in one gulp. After swallowing the blood essence, her face began to flush. Her delicate body went limp, and she let out a soft moan. It was obvious that she enjoyed it very much. This taste is even more delicious than normal blood. And Lin was about to explode upon seeing this, and he let loose a torrent of abuse. What the F***CK? You swallow my drop of blood essence. Is this how slave contracts are supposed to be established? Are you trying to swallow my drop of blood essence? In order to establish the slave contract, Cassidy had to fuse her blood essence into her glabella. However, she did not say anything and directly swallowed the blood essence. Lin felt that he had been tricked. That's right, he must have been tricked. Cassidy returned to her senses and looked at Lin with an aggrieved expression. I'm sorry, I really couldn't help it. I promise that this won't happen again. If I believed you, I would be an idiot. Lin sneered. Cassidy closed her eyes and said, How about this? Tie me up so I can't move, and you can drip your blood essence onto my glabella. Lin thought about it. This was indeed a good idea. He rummaged through his storage ring and really did find a rope. This was an intermediate rank spirit tool, the Blue Sea Dragon rope. It was crafted from the tendons of a young West Sea Dragon and possessed extremely powerful binding properties. Lin used the blue rope to tie Cassidy up. Her slender waist, nimble hands, voluptuous breasts, and long, sexy legs. Oi, is there need to tie me up so tightly? Cassidy couldn't help but ask, and Lin blushed as he stopped what he was doing. It had to be said that Cassidy's figure was superb. She was a rare, seductive beauty, and Lin was instantly hooked up to her. Cassidy's figure appeared even sexier after being tied up by the Blue Sea Dragon rope, and Lin couldn't help but steal a few more glances at her. After a short while, he stopped looking and began the slave contract ceremony, drawing out another drop of blood essence. Blood essence was no ordinary blood. Instead, it was blood that was imbued with Lin's spiritual essence and Tao intent. If he were to use it too many times in a row, his body would be completely depleted, so he had to succeed this time. Cassidy's body trembled slightly at the sight of the drop of blood essence, and her eyes were filled with intense yearning. Having tasted a marrow, she really wanted to eat this drop of blood essence. She opened her mouth and stuck out her pink tongue, upon which she pounced toward the drop of blood essence like a dumpling. Cassidy had lost her rationality again. Holy F***CK? And Lin was given a massive fright, and he immediately unleashed a spell technique to draw back the drop of blood essence. Cassidy was still pouncing toward him, and Lin slapped her onto the brick before mounting her and pinning her down beneath his body. Calm down. Let go of me. Let go of me. I want to devour your blood essence. Cassidy struggled on the brick. Lin had one hand on Cassidy's shoulder to stabilize her body, while his other hand covered her mouth to prevent her from devouring the drop of blood essence. Wah! Cassidy struggled with all her might as tears of indignation welled up in her crimson eyes. And Lin's face convulsed upon seeing this. F*CK. Why does it look like I'm up to no good? The drop of blood essence began to fly toward Cassidy's glabella before landing on her glabella without any mishaps. And Lin heaved a sigh of relief before looking at her glabella with an expectant expression, only to discover that the golden drop of blood showed no signs of being devoured. He looked at Cassidy with a speechless expression, and there was a hint of indifference in his eyes. A slave contract could only be established with the consent of both parties. Right now, Cassidy was only focused on devouring the blood essence, and not on establishing a connection with it. I'll give you 3 seconds. If you can't establish a contract within 3 seconds, then piss off. And Lin said in a cold voice. Cassidy's expression faltered upon hearing this before a hint of clarity returned to her scorching eyes. 3, 2, 1. The golden drop of blood began to seep into Cassidy's glabella as Lin's voice trailed off. An indistinct connection was established between Lin and Cassidy, thereby establishing a slave contract. Lin heaved a sigh of relief before rising to his feet and releasing the blue sea dragon rope so that Cassidy could move freely again. A hint of disappointment appeared on Cassidy's face, as if she had missed out on something very beautiful. By the way, your name Cassidy is too hard to pronounce. I'll call you Little Kuh from now on. And Lin sat down on his black brick as he spoke. Little Kuh. Cassidy faltered slightly upon hearing this. She was a revered return to Void Stage mighty figure and the sect leader of the Heavenly Blood sect, but she was being referred to as Little Kuh by a soul formation stage cultivator. However, she suddenly recalled that the man before her was already her master, so there was nothing wrong with referring to him as such. Thus, she heaved an indiscernible sigh before nodding. All right, Master Enri Tien. Don't call me Enri Tien. My name is Lin. Lin waved his hand. Cassidy raised her head and looked up at Lin with confusion in her eyes. I was lying to you. My real name is Lin, Lin explained. Cassidy's negative emotions surged. I'm so angry, but I still have to maintain a smile on my face. He's already my master after all. Then, master, when can I suck your blood? Cassidy stared at Lin with a scorching light in her eyes. Lin rolled his eyes. This slave was toxic. All she wanted to do was suck his blood, maybe when I'm in a good mood, Lin replied perfunctorily. Cassidy made her way over and latched onto Lin's arm as her voluptuous chest rubbed against his arm. She inched closer to Lin's ear and spoke in a seductive voice. Then, how can I make you happy? Can I please you? Lin shuddered upon hearing this, and he immediately shrugged off Cassidy's hand. Get away from me. Oh. Cassidy took a couple of steps back, but her seductive red eyes stared intently at Lin. F*CK. This B***starred is even more seductive than Xiao Hong. If she continued to tease him like this, Lin felt like he was about to lose his virginity. Ahem. I'll reward you with blood whenever you perform meritorious deeds in battle. Lin began to list out all kinds of meritorious deeds as he spoke. For example, obtaining an immortal tool would reward him with 3 milliliters of blood. Obtaining 1,000,000 spirit stones would reward him with 1 milliliter of blood. Obtaining a golden realm essence crystal would reward him with 1 milliliter of blood. Killing a return to void stage mighty figure would reward him with 5 milliliters of blood. Cassidy sat obediently on her black brick as she listened to Lin's conditions with a scorching light in her eyes. Chapter 532. Lin continued to fly toward the white jade mountain atop his black brick. Now that he had the help of a return to void stage mighty figure, he was a lot safer. Cassidy was at the pinnacle of the return to void initial stage and was about to progress to the return to void intermediate stage. With her help, even if he couldn't defeat other return to void stage mighty figures, he would still have a good chance of escaping. And Lin lent the blood soul jade coffin to Cassidy to continue her recuperation. Cassidy stared at the coffin with complex emotions in her heart. If it weren't for the fact that she had been overly confident and decided to recuperate on the grasslands, she wouldn't have encountered Lin, and she wouldn't have become his servant. No, it wasn't for no reason. It was for the mighty, holy blood, for the blood that could elevate one's life force to a higher level. She lay in the coffin and unleashed a spell technique to absorb the vitality within a radius of several dozen kilometers. Lin flew above the purple grasslands atop his black brick, and everything in his wake was completely barren, as if he were a demon king. After flying for close to 2 hours, the blood soul jade coffin opened again, and Cassidy sat up before stretching lazily to show off her impressive figure. The starlight shone down on her face, making her appear particularly enchanting. Phew, I've almost recovered, Cassidy said. If you've recovered, then hurry up and come out of the coffin and stop your spell technique, and Lin snapped. Why are you in such a hurry? Cassidy pursed her lips. I've been a moving target for 2 hours, and I'm not as careless as you. And Lin felt like it was best not to use this type of coffin, as it would attract too many enemies if it emitted such a bright red light. After Cassidy emerged from the coffin, and Lin stowed the blood soul jade coffin away. Our main mission now is to collect Golden Realm Essence Crystals. We have to do everything we can to obtain Golden Realm Essence Crystals. And Lin spoke with a solemn expression. Oh, Cassidy nodded before turning to Lin with a peculiar expression. I've always wanted to ask, who gave you the courage to come to the Void Star section as a mere soul formation stage cultivator? Don't blame me for being blunt. Your strength is indeed at the peak of the soul formation stage, but who can you defeat here? Could it be that he came here just because there are more Golden Realm Essence Crystals in the Void Star section? And Lin almost cried when he heard that. Do you think I want to come here? After saying that, he told Cassidy about his experience. Cassidy was surprised to hear this. I didn't think you would encounter the legendary giant starry mountain. It does have the ability to pass through the space between the two domains. You're really unlucky. You can't say that I'm unlucky. Fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. At the very least, I've gained quite a lot of spoils of war, and I've even taken in a return to Void Stage servant, and Lin sighed with emotion. Cassidy, so should I keep smiling now, or should I praise you instead? And Lin, I'm sorry, that was just a slip of the tongue, and Lin was quite embarrassed to have accidentally stabbed Cassidy in the heart. By the way, do you know how far away the Purple Grass Plains is from the White Jade Mountain? I've been walking for so long, but I still can't see the end of it, and Lin suddenly asked. Cassidy paused momentarily before replying. The Purple Grass Plains are quite big. At your current speed, it'll take you about 6 hours to get there. That's so far. And Lin was astonished. You want to go to the White Jade Mountain? Why didn't you tell me? I could have taken you there in less than an hour using spatial skipping, Cassidy said with a perplexed expression. And Lin, Cassidy's question was so sharp that Lin had no response to it. Because I'm stupid. And Lin chose to answer in the end. Thus, Cassidy tore open a spatial gate and stepped into it with Lin in one hand and Shui Zhantian in the other. The White Jade Mountain was a stretch of pristine white mountain ranges with a layer of white jade covering the surface of the mountain ranges. They glowed faintly under the light of the stars in the sky, giving the tranquil environment a sense of holiness. A black spatial rift split open in the air, and a long-legged woman emerged with Shui Zhantian, who was frothing at the mouth, and Lin, who was completely dizzy. Wait, are you guys okay? It's only been an hour, and you're already so dizzy? Cassidy asked with a resigned expression, and Lin rubbed his brows and grumbled. You're the one who's not very good at spatial skipping, and you're blaming me for this? That's right. A real man should advance bravely, not up and down, left and right, breaking suddenly and charging forward. You can't even stay still for a second. Zhantian lay on Lin's head with a dispirited expression. Cassidy rolled her eyes. Do you think traveling through space is the same as teleporting through a spatial spell formation? There are many things that you have to be aware of. She couldn't be bothered to explain. Instead, she swept her divine sense outward in a frenzy. Her top priority now was to find the Golden Realm essence crystals to exchange for that delicious blood. All of a sudden, her expression faltered, and she turned toward a certain direction as a seductive smile appeared on her face. And Lin immediately knew that something was up, and he asked in an urgent voice, "What did you discover?" Cassidy pointed in a certain direction with a mysterious smile on her face. "I discovered the aura of my kind in that direction. It's the aura of the blood tribe." And Lin immediately understood upon hearing this. He nodded. "Let's go have a look." He put on his illusionary star robe and followed behind Cassidy with Zhantian in his arms. Cassidy also unleashed a mystic technique to conceal her body and aura as they flew forward. As they drew closer and closer, and Lin was greeted by the sight of an extremely strange terrain. Among a series of mountains that were covered in white jade, there was one that was slightly smaller at the base and slightly larger at the top. The slope of the mountain wasn't very steep, and it looked like a thick pillar from afar. There seemed to be a faint golden glow emanating from this pillar, and Lin's attention was immediately drawn to it. It was quite clear that this was an abnormal region. 5 humanoid jade statues over 100 feet tall stood at the top of the pillar in a circular formation. There was no life aura emanating from them, but they gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. And Lin looked around the pillar to discover 3 figures standing in a triangular formation. He looked at these 3 beings to discover that one of them was a handsome man with short golden hair and a slightly thin figure. This man had crimson pupils, and he was undoubtedly a return to Void Stage Blood Tribe mighty figure. The other being was an ordinary-looking man with dragon horns on his head and a white fan in his hand. This was most likely a return to Void Stage mighty figure from the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas, and he was an ally of Lin's after all. The final being was a shark that was around 30 feet in size and enshrouded within a spherical ball of water. This shark had a pair of black wings on its back, and its ventral fins had evolved into a pair of black claws. One of its claws held a blue bead, while the other had a black liquid revolving around it. It was most likely a member of the West Sea ancient monsters, and Lin could see that all 3 of them belonged to different powers, and all of them seemed to be hostile toward the other 2 powers. As such, the triangle relationship between the 3 mighty figures was quite stable, and there was no way that they would end up fighting each other. A smug smile suddenly appeared on Lin's face. But now, this kind of relationship had to change because yours truly was here. Chapter 533. There were 3 returned to Void Stage mighty figures around the cylindrical mountain, so they were naturally unable to escape detection. And Lin and Cassidy had no intention of concealing themselves, and they flew directly toward the 3 mighty figures. Sec Leader Cassidy, what a coincidence. I didn't think I would encounter you here. The golden-haired male faltered slightly upon seeing Cassidy before an expression of ecstasy appeared on his face. He had won this round. That's right, I'm here. Merlin, what's the situation like now? Cassidy asked with a smile. The other 2 returned to Void Stage mighty figures' expressions both shifted upon hearing this. Now that 2 Blood Tribe mighty figures had appeared, the balance of power had shifted, and this placed a lot of pressure on them. The ancient monsters of the West Sea and the Dragon Tribe of the East Sea had always been enemies. Some people might ask why 2 powers that spanned across half of the entire continent would become enemies, but that would have to be explained from the time when Pengu split heaven and earth. In any case, there was no way that the Dragon Tribe male and the Shark monster were working together. As such, the 2 Blood Tribe mighty figures present had become a huge threat to them. There's a human and a snow soul beast, and they're both at the soul formation stage? How strange. The Dragon Tribe male was a little surprised, but he didn't do anything. In his eyes, the human was most likely the Blood Tribe mighty figure's captive. His relationship with humans wasn't good enough for him to provoke the blood tribe, just for a human he didn't know. As for the shark monster, it didn't even bother to look at the human as a soul formation stage. Cultivator posed no threat to it. All it had to do was maintain its vigilance toward the two blood tribe mighty figures nearby. This mountain is the node of one of the main veins of the White Jade Mountain, and a phenomenon has occurred there. Perhaps some rare treasures or realm essence crystals will appear soon, which is why I'm waiting here. Merlin's elated expression faded as he explained with a gentle expression. Hee hee, I sure came a good time. You don't mind if I take a share, do you? Cassidy asked with a smile. Of course not. Merlin was very straightforward. He then turned to Lin with a meaningful smile. Who would have thought that sect leader Cassidy would be interested in adopting a pretty boy? A faint smile appeared on Cassidy's face as she replied, It's just a mobile blood bank. I could take a sip of it whenever I'm bored. And Lin's face convulsed slightly upon hearing this. What a good phrase to use as a mobile blood bank. Cassidy was most likely also thinking about this. Merlin nodded. He didn't think much of the human male. After all, he had seen blood tribe cultivators bring along food and enjoy it whenever they wanted. He then turned his attention to the other two return to void stage mighty figures. There are two troublemakers in our way. How about we get rid of them? Merlin suggested with a smile. Can you win? Cassidy asked curiously. They're not of the same mind, so there's no way they'll join forces without any ill will. We have a very good chance. Merlin didn't hide his thoughts. When the Dragon Clan man and the Shark Demon heard this, their expressions changed and they exchanged a solemn glance. Guluo, do you plan to fight or flee? The Dragon Race man turned to ask the Shark Ancient Fae. This point had to be made clear. Otherwise, if the Shark Ancient Demon turned and ran the moment the battle began, then what was the point of fighting? Ao Mingyu, the situation is very clear now. We only have two choices. Since you have battle intent, then I won't flee either. Let's set aside our feud and defeat the blood tribe first, Guluo said as battle intent surged from his body. All right. The Dragon Clan man waved his white fan through the air. Dark clouds instantly surged in the sky within a radius of 5 kilometers, and lightning began to crackle. Guluo stepped forward, and massive waves suddenly surged through the ground as he pounced toward the two blood tribe cultivators. 100,000 soul generals, heed my command. Ancient blood demon formation. A flag suddenly appeared in Merlin's hand, from which countless souls surged forth to form an extremely vast spell formation, which then materialized into the projection of a blood demon over 10,000 feet tall. The blood demon's entire body was crimson, and it wielded a crimson saber, which it sliced through the oncoming wave with a single slash. Thus the battle commenced, and Lin flew through the air atop his brick and became a spectator as he observed the earth-shattering battle. Cassidy charged toward the Dragon Clan man by the name of Ao Mingyu, while Merlin engaged in battle with the Shark Demon. And Lin was able to gauge the power levels of his three opponents through this battle. Ao Mingyu was an average return to void initial stage mighty figure, and he was being slightly outclassed by Cassidy. The wind, rain, and lightning he summoned were extremely fearsome, but they were all evaded or blocked by Cassidy's ghostly movement techniques, so he was completely unable to harm Cassidy. In contrast, Cassidy's crimson flying swords were extremely fearsome, and they were even more lethal than the Dragon Clan man. Streaks of crimson light tore through the lightning, and Ao Mingyu was unable to evade in time as a large gash was inflicted on his arm by the crimson sword. And Lin looked at Cassidy, and he knew that even if he were to use his origin energy of the netherworld and borrow in Kirin's power, he still wouldn't be able to block her crimson flying swords. On the other side of the battlefield, Guluo and Merlin were evenly matched. Both of them were at the pinnacle of the return to void initial stage like Cassidy, so they were evenly matched. However, it was exactly because of this that Ao Mingyu was beginning to back down. F***CK. Guluo was already evenly matched. What was he going to do? If things continued like this, he was going to be killed by Cassidy. A crimson sword projection parted heaven and earth before slashing down upon Ao Mingyu with a sinister killing intent. The hair on Ao Mingyu's body stood on end upon seeing this sword projection, and he let loose an enraged roar as he instantly transformed into a massive white dragon several thousand feet in length, which swept toward the sword projection with his tail. Boom! Ao Mingyu was knocked flying by the terrifying power of the sword projection, and he fled into the distance without even looking back. Cassidy gave up on pursuing him. Even if she wanted to, it would be very difficult for her to catch up to him. After all, in a battle between Return to Void stage mighty figures, as long as the disparity in power wasn't too great, there was a very good chance that one would be able to escape. Gu Luo let loose an enraged curse upon seeing Ao Mingyu flee, before also fleeing into the distance. Thus, it didn't take long for this terrifying battle to draw to a conclusion, and the Blood Tribe secured a resounding victory. Ha! Sect Leader Cassidy, it's all thanks to your help that we were able to defeat our enemies. Merlin was extremely elated at the sight of Ao Mingyu and Gu Luo's departing figures, and he joined his hands in a salute toward Cassidy with a smile on his face. You're far too kind. Cassidy made her way toward Merlin with a dainty smile on her face, and her voluptuous chest jiggled as she swayed her slender waist from side to side. Even Merlin was momentarily dazed upon seeing this, and Cassidy had already made her way over to his side. It was also in that instant that the crimson longsword tore through space and punctured Merlin's heart at close range. The terrifying force behind the sword projection tore through the earth for several kilometers, and a series of inky black spatial rifts manifested just how terrifying that attack was. Everything had happened far too quickly and too abruptly. Merlin was completely caught off guard, and his eyes widened with incredulity as he stared at the hole in his chest. Boom! His body suddenly exploded into a cloud of blood, mist before materializing several hundred meters away. Merlin's punctured chest had already healed, but his face was extremely pale, clearly indicating that he had been severely wounded. Cassidy stepped forward, and the space within a radius of 1.5 kilometers was instantly sealed, thereby cutting off Merlin's escape route. Why? We're from the same power. We don't have any vendettas, do we? Merlin took a deep breath before turning to Cassidy with confusion etched on his face. Cassidy stood proudly before pointing her crimson sword at Merlin, and she raised her chin in a righteous manner. Why? To cleanse this world of all sin, of course. Merlin. Chapter 534. Purify all evil in this world? Merlin was dumbstruck. Was that something a member of the Blood Tribe should say? Cassidy was a fake, wasn't she? Even if you don't want to answer my question, don't try to brush me off with something like that. Merlin felt like he was being treated like a stupid C*** in T, and his voice had even raised a few octaves. However, Cassidy's expression remained unchanged, and she continued to point her sword at Merlin, as if she wasn't joking or trying to brush him off. Right at this moment, a streak of white light flew through the air toward Cassidy. Cassidy caught the streak of white light to discover that it was a white longsword that had been smeared with blood. She faltered slightly before turning to look into the distance. This sword has my blood on it. Let's show Merlin the power of my blood. And Lin smiled. Cassidy nodded with excitement upon hearing this. Only then did Merlin turn to look at the man in the distance, the man that he had completely ignored this entire time. How could he not have realized something at a time like this? There is no way that the human man in the distance was Cassidy's food. The two of them definitely had a special relationship. It was even possible that Cassidy had attacked him because of that man. Cassidy seemed to have gained a lot more confidence as she held her long sword in front of her with a proud expression. Merlin, this is a sword that's been smeared with lethal poison in your eyes. She licked the blood on the blade of the sword as she spoke, upon which an indescribable blush appeared on her face. Her breathing accelerated, and her body rose and fell with pleasure. Merlin stumbled back a couple of steps in fear, thinking that Cassidy was going to unleash some kind of mystic technique. Cassidy continued, "It really is a weapon that has been smeared with lethal poison. Continue licking." Another seductive moan sounded. Merlin's eyes widened. It's poison, but it's also medicine. It will purify your life force and allow you to experience the true meaning of life. Cassidy's eyes rippled as she continued to lick. Right at this moment, a black figure flew through the air before striking Cassidy's head with a knife hand. F***CK off. My blood has almost been sucked dry by you. And Lynn flared up with rage. Cassidy pouted. I can't help it. The corner of Lynn's mouth twitched. You can't help it, and you're saying you're in the right? If you continue to act like this, believe it or not, I will immediately cancel the blood bounty we agreed on before. He felt that giving Cassidy a blood-stained weapon was a mistake, a huge mistake. This woman couldn't even walk after seeing blood. So how could she help you kill the enemy? Merlin looked at the two of them with a perplexed expression, but he didn't just stand there and do nothing. Instead, he immediately began to break free from the spatial seal. Cassidy finally came to her senses after being scolded, as she charged toward Merlin with her long sword in hand. Merlin pulled out his banner again to summon his battle soul to stop Cassidy's attack. The two of them were evenly matched, and now that Merlin had been severely wounded, blood began to flow from his wounds again. Merlin clasped a hand over his wounded waist as he stumbled back in retreat. However, Cassidy didn't follow up with another attack. Instead, she held her sword in front of her as a sinister smile appeared on her face. Your evil body will be purified by my holy blood. She was just about to lick the blood off her long sword as she spoke. However, her brows furrowed slightly as if she were a little disdainful at the sight of Merlin's blood staining her longsword. That was strange. She clearly loved to suck blood in the past, so why was she so disgusted with it now? No, Cassidy came to a sudden realization. This was all because she had seen the world and was no match for water. After tasting Lynn's peerlessly delicious blood, how could she possibly be interested in other inferior blood? Merlin felt like Cassidy had to have gone insane. Her words were always so incomprehensible and incomprehensible. Merlin turned to look up at the human male in the sky, and a terrifying thought suddenly occurred to him. Could it be that Cassidy was being controlled by that man? Or perhaps she had been bewitched. It was already incredible that a soul formation stage male would appear here. Furthermore, his calm expression made it seem as if he had someone backing him up. This was not the expression that a weakling would wear in the face of a powerful being. Just as these thoughts were racing through Merlin's mind, the blood in his body was suddenly invaded by some kind of power. His legs gave out from under him, and he half knelt to the ground as he clutched his chest with an agonized expression. That power seemed to be expelling something and destroying something. Immediately afterward, he felt as if the darkness had been purged and the light of day had descended upon him, making him moan involuntarily. My body has changed, no? I should say, this is my body. Merlin panted heavily as he spoke in a trembling voice. He understood. He understood what Cassidy meant by her words. He couldn't refuse. He couldn't refuse this delicious blood that could elevate his life force to a higher level. Merlin stood up and spread open his arms like the most devout of a saint. Cassidy, come. Use that poisonous weapon of yours to cut me to your heart's content. A hesitant expression appeared on Cassidy's face. She was still hesitating whether she should lick Master's blood or not. She really didn't want to do that, but she was also being stained with that filthy Merlin's blood. On the black brick, Shui Zhangtian slapped his own head with a resigned expression. Another crazy one. At this moment, Lin leaped down from the black brick in a graceful manner. It was time for him to make his entrance. An indescribable feeling welled up in Merlin's heart at the sight of Lin. It was as if the man standing before him was a god who had bestowed upon him a new life, a god whom he couldn't harm and only wanted to protect. Merlin was a little dumbstruck. Could it be that he had already fallen in love? No, that's definitely not it. That's right. That blood belonged to this human male. Merlin instantly figured everything out, and everything became clear to him. And Lin looked at Merlin with a meaningful expression. Establish a slave contract with me, and you will receive my blood in exchange for a brand new life. Merlin's body shuddered as he looked at Cassidy with a hesitant expression. Could it be that you— That's right. I'm willing to follow Master for the sake of a brand new realm of life, Cassidy replied with a calm expression. The first person to make a change often required more courage. When someone had already made a choice, the pressure on the people following them would often be a lot less intense. After all, even the mighty sect leader of the Heavenly Blood Sect was willing to become Enlin's slave, so it wasn't as if Merlin would be willing to become a slave as well. Merlin hesitated momentarily before nodding in agreement. He was then tied up by the blue sea dragon rope. Merlin stared at Enlin with a dumbstruck expression. I'm going to sign a slave contract. Why are you tying me up? All of a sudden, a chill ran down his spine. Could it be that this human male had a special fetish? Enlin pursed his lips upon seeing Merlin's reaction. I'm afraid that you'll swallow my blood essence like a certain someone did. Cassidy stuck out her tongue with an awkward smile on her face. However, Enlin turned to look at her before pointing up into the sky. Cassidy was perplexed. What is it? Piss off. I'm afraid that you'll pounce on me again and swallow my blood essence. I don't have any more rope. Enlin warned with a serious expression. Cassidy, after the blood tribe woman left, Enlin straddled Merlin's body and held him down. 800 words omitted here. In the end, Enlin successfully established a slave contract with Merlin. The number of lackeys had increased by 1. Chapter 535. Following Merlin's surrender, Enlin now had 2 return to Void Stage servants. He felt like he could use his own blood to try and subdue a return to Void Stage Blood Tribe army. With the power of the Blood Tribe army, he would be able to collect Golden Realm Essence crystals at a faster rate. After all, the power of an individual was limited, but the power of a group was limitless. Ahem. Oh, right, little wheat. Do you know where your other friends are? Enlin asked in a slow voice. Merlin's chest tightened. Little wheat? Why don't you call me Little Rice? He shook his head. I've been in the Void Star section for so long, but I haven't encountered any other Blood Tribe cultivators. Enlin was quite disappointed to hear this. Cassidy had mentioned that there were 4 return to Void Stage Blood Tribe mighty figures in the Void Star section, which meant that as long as those mighty figures were still alive, he could recruit 2 more into his group. Master, I worked hard to help you subdue Merlin. Are you going to— Cassidy spoke in a gentle voice as she stared at Enlin with her watery eyes. Enlin only remembered this upon hearing this, and he immediately replied, I, Enlin, am a man of my word. You helped me subdue Merlin, which is equivalent to killing a return to Void Stage mighty figure. You will be rewarded with 5 milliliters of blood. He slid his finger as he spoke, and a large drop of blood flew toward Cassidy. Cassidy pounced toward the drop of blood with excitement on her face before swallowing it whole. A faint blush appeared on her cheeks, and she closed her eyes with bliss as if she was digesting the drop of blood. Merlin's eyes widened at the sight of the large drop of blood, and he swallowed uncontrollably. Master, I want it too. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. Hand over your storage ring, and I can reward you with 3 milliliters of blood. Oh, right. That flag is your weapon, so I can let you keep it for now. A conflicted expression appeared on Merlin's face. He looked at Cassidy, who was trembling with happiness, and he finally made up his mind. All right, deal. Thus, Enlin exchanged another large drop of blood for a Blood Tribe storage ring. He couldn't wait to refine the storage ring and inspect the items inside. 1,200,000 vital stones, 13 spirit tools, over 20 spirit pills, over 10 spirit fruits, 2 golden realm essence crystals, 1 red realm essence crystal, 10 blue realm essence crystals, and 20 white realm essence crystals. 3 milliliters of fresh blood for these items. What a steal. Enlin glanced at his storage ring before clearing his throat and explaining the rest of the blood bounty rules to Merlin. Obtain an immortal tool, and you'll be rewarded with 3 milliliters of blood, 1 million spirit stones, and 1 milliliter of blood. Obtained 1 golden realm essence crystal, rewarded with 1 milliliter of blood. Merlin's body swayed slightly upon hearing this. Fuck, what a huge loss. If he had known this would happen, he would have sold the items in the storage ring one by one. That way, he would have definitely obtained more blood. He then came to his senses and looked at Enlin with a hint of resentment on his face. Wasn't Enlin's intention in only mentioning the rules now? Rumble. Suddenly, the chi of heaven and earth surged wildly. Dark clouds obscured the stars in the sky, and golden lightning snakes slithered through the dark clouds as a fearsome might converged overhead. Enlin was given a massive fright, and he looked around, thinking that some mighty figure had intervened. However, he then turned toward Cassidy, who was meditating on the ground, and drew a sharp intake of breath. Cassidy is about to make a breakthrough. We have to get back. Merlin dragged Enlin and Shui Zhantian in retreat as he spoke. Vital energy surged for over 50 kilometers before forming a massive cyclone that converged within Cassidy's body. Immediately afterward, bolts of golden void lightning struck Cassidy's body. Dazzling lightning exploded like a golden sun in the sky, bathing heaven and earth in a golden hue. The lightning tribulation didn't last for very long, and the lightning clouds soon dissipated. Cassidy stood up, and her aura was vast and powerful. After opening her eyes, a hint of transcendent aura appeared on her face. An astonished expression appeared on Merlin's face. How could this be? Isn't she progressing from the initial stage to the intermediate stage? Why isn't she undergoing a blood demon tribulation? Blood demon tribulation? Enlin blinked in confusion. We blood tribe cultivators often feed on the blood essence of other living beings, and the blood essence that flows into our bodies will affect our Tao foundation. The resentment, hatred, and all kinds of negative energy contained within them are our blood demons. Hence, every time we progress to the return to void stage, we have to transcend a blood demon tribulation. Merlin's voice trailed off as he turned to Enlin, and his eyes lit up as he took a deep breath. I understand now. It's all because of Master, because of the purification of your blood. Enlin, Merlin was ecstatic. The blood tribe's blood demon tribulation was far more perilous than the lightning tribulation, and there were often blood tribe mighty figures who perished as a result. Now that his blood had been purified, just the fact that he was spared from the blood demon tribulation was worth it. Cassidy had clearly realized this as well, and she made her way over to Enlin before wrapping her arms around Enlin's arm in a seductive manner. Thank you, Master. It's all thanks to your blood that I was able to break through my bottleneck and successfully progress to the void stage. Don't seduce me if you're thanking me. Enlin struggled free from Cassidy's arm with a disgruntled expression. You're so insensitive. Cassidy pouted as she put on a pitiful expression. If other men were to see Cassidy's seductive expression, they would probably be unable to look away. In fact, they might even be tempted to pull her into their arms. Enlin heaved a forlorn sigh as he held Shui Zhantian tightly in his arms. Not only is she after my blood, but she's also after me? This woman is far too dangerous. However, the fact that Cassidy had progressed to the return to void intermediate stage meant that Enlin's team had become even more powerful. In this regard, he was quite pleased. Not long after that, the cylindrical mountain began to glow with a brilliant golden light, and the ground began to tremor and quake. The changes have finally begun. Master, please get away from this mountain. I have a bad feeling about this. Cassidy's expression became extremely grave as her eyes fell upon the 5 humanoid jade statues over 100 feet tall at the top of the cylindrical mountain. Enlin retreated with Shui Zhantian in tow as he stared intently at the 5 humanoid jade statues. A golden light flickered from the location of the hearts of the humanoid jade statues, as if they were beating hearts, and an extremely terrifying might erupted from their hearts. Over 50 kilometers away, an ordinary-looking dragon tribe male waved a white fan as he stared at the golden light in the distance with narrowed eyes. Has it finally begun? In another direction, a shark monster wielding a white bead wore a cruel smile on its face. Do you really think I'm going to leave just like that? I'm going to make you pay. Chapter 536. The cylindrical mountain began to crumble, and a pillar of golden light shot into the sky. The golden light was imbued with an extremely fearsome power that could reduce the Jade Mountain to dust. The 5 jade humanoid beasts were bathed in the golden light, and not only were they not destroyed, they became even more powerful. Their eyes began to glow with a dazzling light, and their joints began to vibrate as if they were doing a mechanical warm-up. The pillar of golden light slowly dissipated, and dazzling realm essence crystals appeared in the rubble of the mountain. And Lin's eyes widened, and he drew a sharp intake of breath as his voice trembled slightly. 21. There are 21 golden realm essence crystals. There were 21 realm essence crystals clustered together in the center of the rubble, but all 21 of them were golden in color. These were realm essence crystals of the highest grade. Not only was Lin astonished, but even Cassidy and Merlin were a little dazed as if they had been blinded by the dazzling golden light. My God, we're going to be rich, Merlin murmured. 21 milliliters of holy blood. Cassidy licked her crimson lips with a scorching light in her eyes. And Lin was already itching for action. Hurry up and go. Merlin pulled out his banner. Don't get excited. The bigger the treasure, the more dangerous it is. Those 5 jade humanoid beasts are definitely not to be trifled with. Let me assess their strength first. He unleashed 100,000 battle souls toward the realm essence crystals as he spoke. He. 21 milliliters of holy blood is mine. Merlin, you're shameless. Cassidy flared up with rage when she discovered that the battle souls were flying toward the realm essence crystals on the ground instead of toward the crystalline humanoid beasts in the sky. However, right at this moment, a golden light fell from the sky. Boom! A white jade humanoid crashed violently into the ground, and a golden shockwave erupted forth for over a kilometer, pulverizing the ground and sending the 100,000 battle souls flying. So powerful, and Lin could sense the vast aura emanating from the jade humanoid beast's body. They were clearly comparable to return to void stage mighty figures. Oof. Powerful or not, this wheat is just too weak. Cassidy was already in a fit of rage, and she couldn't help but sneer coldly at the sight of Merlin's battle souls being sent flying before charging toward the jade humanoid beasts. Who gives you the right to call me little wheat? Merlin was immediately enraged upon hearing this. He began to activate the banner with all his might. Black light flashed within the banner, and 100,000 battle souls started to form a battle formation, condensing into a 10,000-foot-tall blood demon phantom. However, as soon as the blood demon's projection was formed, the 2 humanoid jade beasts turned into golden beams of light and charged toward the gigantic blood demon. Boom! Boom! The terrifying impact caused the huge blood devil to topple over and fall to the ground. As expected of a return to void intermediate stage powerful being, Cassidy's crimson sword became more and more powerful, and the humanoid jade beast was completely suppressed. Just as she was closing in on the golden realm essence crystals, the other 2 humanoid jade beasts pounced toward her, and the tables were instantly turned. Cassidy was being pummeled by the 3 humanoid jade beasts, and Merlin was also being pummeled into the ground by 2 humanoid jade beasts. Neither of them had a chance of winning. But don't forget, there's still Lin. Lin spread open his wings and activated the wind sword in his hand as he abruptly pounced toward the golden realm essence crystals in the distance. A sonic boom cloud expanded outward, leaving a white trail in its wake as it tore through the air. Hold them off from me. And Lin transmitted his voice to Cassidy and Merlin. Cassidy let loose a delicate cry, and countless crimson swords formed a sword net trapping formation to ensnare the 3 humanoid jade beasts. The giant blood demon under Merlin's control also let loose an almighty roar, and its 2 huge hands suddenly exploded to form a massive crimson net, which ensnared the 2 humanoid jade beasts. It wasn't trying to completely trap them, but it was just trying to stall them for a while. And Lin drew closer and closer to the golden realm essence crystals, and just when he thought that he was going to succeed, an extreme sense of peril suddenly engulfed his entire body. He unleashed his origin energy of the netherworld without any hesitation, and his aura soared explosively as he slashed his sword sideways. Boom! A gargantuan ball of water exuding an aura of annihilation collided with Lin's sword strike, and heaven and earth instantly fell silent. Then, black and blue energy exploded violently, creating a shockwave that extended for several kilometers. PFFF. Lin was swept up by the shockwave, and he threw up a large mouthful of blood as his body plummeted to the ground like a cannonball. Oh, a soul formation stage cultivator was able to withstand my attack. In the distance, an ancient shark monster flew toward Lin with a hint of surprise in its eyes. It was none other than Gu Luo. But you're only a soul formation stage cultivator after all. These realm essence crystals are mine. The ancient shark monster roared with laughter as it charged toward the golden realm essence crystals. Before the ancient shark monster's smile had even faded, an extremely thick bolt of white lightning fell from the sky and struck the ancient shark monster's head viciously. How? A white dragon suddenly appeared from within the faint clouds and mist. It then descended from the sky, and its target was also the 21 golden realm essence crystals. This was none other than Ao Mingyu, who had already reverted to his true form, a winged dragon. The ancient shark monster flared up with rage upon seeing this, and the black mist on its left claw transformed into a sinister shark that charged toward the white dragon at a speed that was even faster than the white dragon. Ao Mingyu, you can't defeat me, so piss off. I can consider giving you 5 of these golden realm essence crystals after I take them. The white dragon remained unmoved, and its body was enshrouded in white lightning as it charged toward the golden realm essence crystals without any hesitation. Boom! The white dragon collided with the black mist shark, and the white lightning completely pulverized the shark. However, it was also in that instant that Gu Luo had already charged toward Ao Mingyu, and the two of them engaged in battle again. 21 golden realm essence crystals was extremely tempting even to a return to void stage mighty figure. And Lin stood up from a massive crater as he coughed up a mouthful of blood. An attack from a mighty figure at the pinnacle of the return to void initial stage was simply too terrifying. Even with his embryonic body of the war god and the origin energy of the netherworld, his body was still severely wounded. However, he wasn't going to give up. These 21 golden realm essence crystals had to be his. Cassidy and Merlin had given up on trapping the humanoid jade beast. Only an idiot would do something like that if an outsider were to interfere. Thus, the humanoid jade beast sensed that the golden realm essence crystals were in danger, and it began to change targets as it pounced toward the white dragon and the shark. The earth-shattering collision of energy erupted into the heavens. If a normal person were to approach within a kilometer of this battle, they would be torn to shreds by the fearsome shockwaves. And Lin swallowed a pill. This was a 5th-grade immortal pill, the Scorching Sun pill, which could unleash boundless latent potential for a short period of time. Boom! His aura had already reached the soul formation pinnacle stage after being enhanced by the origin energy of the netherworld. And now that he had swallowed a Scorching Sun pill, his aura was progressing to an even higher level. Chapter 537. Using mystic techniques and ingesting pills like this was extremely taxing on his body. However, Lin had no other choice. In the face of the fear of becoming a eunuch for 10,000 years, he had to fight for his life. Starlight flashed within his illusionary star robe, and his aura concealment ability was fully activated. His aura began to climb explosively. Return to void initial stage. Pinnacle of return to void initial stage. Return to void intermediate stage. Pinnacle of return to void intermediate stage. Return to void final stage. A terrifying aura proliferated outward, causing the space within a radius of 1.5 kilometers to suddenly congeal. Even the 5 humanoid jade beasts faltered slightly before turning toward a certain direction. Gu Luo and Ao Mingyu shuddered before turning toward Lin with astonishment etched on their faces. This aura, how could this be? Gu Luo was in disbelief. No way. He must be using some kind of special treasure to fool us. Dazzling white lightning erupted from Ao Mingyu's body as an extremely powerful aura proliferated outward, as if he was trying to dispel the pressure emanating from Lin's body. And Lin looked at everyone in the distance with a cold expression as he made his way toward the Golden Realm essence crystals. I didn't want to use this power, but you forced my hand. Anyone who dares to compete with me for the Realm essence crystals will die. A golden light flashed through his eyes as he spoke, and golden ripples proliferated outward with a paramount might, as if he were a god looking down upon the ants of this world. Everyone was astonished by this majestic aura, and Shui Zhantian yelled with excitement. Cassidy's eyes widened in astonishment. Is that our master? Merlin also stared at the scenes unfolding before his eyes with incredulity. Could it be that my master is an extremely powerful, mighty figure? That makes sense. If he's not an extremely powerful, mighty figure, his blood wouldn't be this delicious. How? Impossible. He's only a soul formation stage cultivator. What gives him the right to compete with me for the Realm Essence Crystals? Ao Mingyu's dragon body danced through the air as a powerful dragon might erupted forth. He glared at the oncoming Lin with undisguised hostility. You talk a lot of sh*t. And Lin made a grabbing motion toward Ao Mingyu. All of a sudden, the white lightning enshrouding Ao Mingyu's body converged to form a white lightning sword. The white lightning flashed with terrifying golden lightning imbued with the power of great destruction. The power contained in the white lightning sword was clearly more powerful than the lightning released by the white dragon itself. It instantly pierced through the white dragon's body with terrifying power. How? Ao Mingyu let loose a pained cry as lightning exploded and blood sprayed through the air. This attack was far too uncanny and sudden, and Ao Mingyu was caught completely off guard. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. He was even able to control Ao Mingyu's own power, and he was even more powerful than Ao Mingyu. This strength was too terrifying. Gu Luo originally had a lot of doubts, but after seeing Lin's move, most of his doubts disappeared. As expected of a return to Void final stage mighty figure, Lin continued to walk toward the Golden Realm Essence Crystals, and no one dared to stop him. There was a gaping hole in Ao Mingyu's body, and he was panting heavily as he looked at Lin with a hint of shock and horror in his eyes. Gu Luo wore a grave expression as he enshrouded himself in a barrier of water, as if he was guarding against Lin's sudden attack. After a brief pause, the 5 humanoid jade beasts sprang into action again, completely unafraid of Lin's terrifying aura. Their targets were the 3 people closest to the Golden Realm Essence Crystals. One of the humanoid jade beasts pounced toward Ao Mingyu, another pounced toward Gu Luo, and the other 3 charged directly toward Lin. Holy Mother of God! Lin was under immense pressure in that instant. Even though he was extremely nervous, his expression remained extremely calm and collected. He pulled out a snowball-like object nonchalantly before tossing it toward the 3 humanoid jade beasts. Puny jade beasts dare to stand in my way? Taste my heavenly frost palm. He had tossed out one of the snow explosion balls that he had stored in Qing Li's storage ring. These were disposable weapons refined by Meng Ji, and their power was equivalent to a full force attack from a return to Void Intermediate Stage Snow Maiden. The snowball exploded in front of the 3 jade beasts. The blue explosion swept through the space within a radius of 10 miles, and the ground cracked and shattered. In that instant, the entire world was filled with blue light, and then an extremely cold aura took the form of a sphere and instantly spread out for 5 kilometers, freezing everything. This was an explosive force followed by a freezing force. It was a double impact. The 3 jade beasts that bore the brunt of the blast were sent flying by the explosion. Then they were frozen solid. Even Ao Mingyu and Gu Luo, who were situated several kilometers away, were forced to retreat with expressions of shock and horror on their faces. That man's heavenly frost palm is so terrifying, Gu Luo exclaimed in shock as he retreated. Ao Mingyu was extremely remorseful at this moment. He didn't think that the human male he had been looking down on was actually a return to Void final stage mighty figure. Could it be that the human was afraid of the backlash from the laws of heaven and earth, so he deliberately suppressed his realm? That's right. That must be it. Ao Mingyu felt like he had discovered the truth, and he was already thinking about running away. And Lin took advantage of the time when the three humanoid jade beasts were knocked back and severely wounded to spread open his wings of wind and unleash his wind sword technique. His body instantly broke through the sound barrier and reached 8 times the speed of sound. His body transformed into a streak of white light, and he appeared before the Golden Realm Essence crystals in just 3 seconds. Pluck, pluck, pluck. And Lin's hands transformed into a series of afterimages as he instantly stowed the 21 Golden Realm Essence crystals into his storage ring. After plucking the Golden Realm Essence crystals, he unleashed all of his power to flee into the distance. Expressions of grief and disappointment appeared on Ao Mingyu and Gu Luo's faces. However, they didn't dare to face Lin head-on due to the power he had just displayed. Cracks had appeared on the pristine white surfaces of the 3 humanoid jade beasts that had been blasted flying by the snowball, but their auras did not diminish in the slightest. After seeing that Lin had taken the Golden Realm Essence crystals, they immediately gave chase again. What are you two still standing there for? Hurry up and help me. And Lin transmitted his voice with an enraged expression. Cassidy and Merlin recovered from their shock and turned to look at Lin with confusion on their faces. Master, you're already so powerful. Why do you still need help? Cassidy asked with a perplexed expression. The image of Lin blasting the 3 jade beasts flying with his heavenly frost palm was still fresh in their minds. What a powerful palm strike that was. Master could easily take care of the jade beasts, so why do you still need them? There's a time limit to my power. That power is not tolerated by heaven and earth, so I can't use it for long. Hurry up and help me. And Lin explained in a panicked voice. Not tolerated by heaven and earth. So powerful. So domineering. Cassidy and Merlin's eyes lit up. Was her master already that bad *SS? No wonder he was intentionally suppressing his power. The 2 Blood Tribe mighty figures immediately flew toward Lin to shield him from the 3 enraged jade beasts. Meanwhile, Lin flew toward Shuizhantian and allowed him to escape into the distance. The origin energy of the netherworld mystic technique ended, and Lin's body began to feel weak and feeble. Master, your performance just then was way too bad *SS. That kind of spirit that could swallow the mountains and rivers, and that he was the supreme one, was displayed to the fullest. I benefited immensely from it. Shuizhantian spoke with excitement. Of course. Don't you know who your master is? This is the renowned sword immortal Lin. A faint smile appeared on Lin's face as he spoke with self-confidence and smugness, flexing in front of a bunch of return to Void stage mighty figures. What an exhilarating experience. On top of that, he had also obtained 21 Golden Realm Essence crystals. What a windfall. Chapter 538. It was supposed to be time for them to run after obtaining the Realm Essence crystals. And Lin, Cassidy, and Merlin were all thinking the same thing, so they retreated as they fought. One of them was at the Return to Void intermediate stage, while the other was at the pinnacle of the Return to Void initial stage. This was more than enough to deal with the pursuit of the 3 jade beasts. However, something unexpected happened at this moment. A roar that sounded like that of an ancient ferocious beast suddenly erupted. A deafening sound wave swept through heaven and earth for close to 10 kilometers. A black shark over a kilometer in length materialized in the air before opening its gargantuan, bloodthirsty mouth before pouncing toward one of the jade beasts and swallowing it before self-detonating. A terrifying black energy exploded in a circular manner before wreaking havoc in the surrounding area. The humanoid jade beast in the shark's abdomen was torn apart by the energy from the shark's self-detonation before finally crumbling to the ground. Just as the jade beast crumbled, a A shiny golden object appeared where its heart had been. Its light pierced through the darkness and was extremely dazzling in the void, causing everyone's eyes to light up. A golden realm essence crystal. The humanoid jade beast heart was a golden realm essence crystal. And Lynn took a deep breath before turning to Cassidy and Merlin. Stop running. Your blood tribe mighty figures. Aren't you ashamed to be chased by a few jade beasts? Even without Lynn's reminder, Merlin and Cassidy's eyes had already lit up. Those were golden realm essence crystals. One golden realm essence crystal was equivalent to 1 drop of blood. How could they not be excited? The war banners waved through the air, and 100,000 souls materialized into a blood demon again before pouncing toward the jade beasts. A crimson streak of light soared into the sky as a terrifying crimson sword slashed down upon the jade beasts. An intense battle erupted once again. In order to secure the golden realm essence crystals first, Cassidy and Merlin both unleashed their trump cards with all their might. The mountainous blood demon, over 10,000 feet tall, materialized a massive crimson saber. Energy surged violently, and the saber began to crackle with black lightning as a devastating power erupted from blade. The blood demon raised its crimson saber, which was intertwined with black lightning, and slashed down upon the humanoid jade beast. Rumble. Heaven and earth exploded as the humanoid jade beast crashed straight into the blade. The golden light and the black lightning tore each other apart and exploded in the shape of a ball. Finally, the black lightning tore through the golden light, and the blood demon's broadsword broke through the defense of the humanoid jade beast. When the blade light landed on the white body of the jade beast, it directly shattered his body. Elsewhere, Cassidy's body transformed into a graceful black shadow as she evaded the humanoid jade beast's attacks relentlessly. Her crimson sword tore through space and slashed toward the jade beast relentlessly. Although her opponents were 2 humanoid jade beasts, she chose to capture one of the humanoid jade beasts and beat it to death. This was a sword cultivator of the Return to Void intermediate stage who specialized in killing, and he had used a mystic technique to enhance his power. The speed of his crimson sword was so fast that it was almost impossible to follow. All one could see was a series of crimson afterimages tearing through space. Cassidy was able to slice a humanoid jade beast into over 100 pieces amidst the countless golden cannon blasts. The other jade beast didn't flee upon seeing this. Instead, it pounced toward Cassidy with even more fury. The result was quite obvious. This humanoid jade beast was also slain by her. Both Cassidy and Merlin had used mystic techniques to self-detonate their bodies, so their auras were a little feeble after killing their enemies. Their already fair complexions had become even paler. "Master, I'm anemic." Cassidy raised her brows at Lynn as she spoke in a seductive, mellow voice. And Lynn rolled his eyes before slicing open his finger and tossing 4 milliliters of blood toward Cassidy. Cassidy caught the blood with an expression of elation on her face. "Master, this is twice as much. Is this an extra reward for my exceptional performance?" All right, she was so happy that she had even changed the way she addressed herself. "No, even though you didn't receive the 21 golden realm essence crystals directly, you still contributed to the process. Hence, the extra 2 milliliters is a reward for your efforts." And Lynn explained. Thus, Merlin also received 3 milliliters of blood. After consuming Lynn's blood, the 2 blood tribe cultivators' faces were flushed red, and their bodies were completely invigorated. And Lynn stowed away the 3 golden realm essence crystals. In addition to the 21 golden realm essence crystals in his storage ring, he now had a total of 31 golden realm essence crystals. Before he knew it, he had already completed a third of the mission, and Lynn discovered that Cassidy and Merlin weren't in a hurry to leave after consuming their blood. Instead, they were looking behind them with menacing expressions. There, Ao Mingyu was engaged in a fierce battle with a humanoid jade beast, and it was difficult to determine a victor. "I think Ao Mingyu might need help," Merlin suggested. I think we can kill Ao Mingyu as well. Cassidy was even more direct. And Lin, Ao Mingyu transformed into a white dragon, and his dragon tail swept toward the humanoid jade beast with devastating force. The humanoid jade beast's fists were enshrouded in a golden light, and it was not fearful in the slightest as it threw a punch toward the dragon tail. The two attacks clashed, sending terrifying shockwaves through the air. Ao Mingyu was knocked back by the force of the punch, and the humanoid jade beast was also knocked flying by the dragon tail. The humanoid jade beast was comparable to a return to void initial stage mighty figure, so Ao Mingyu was not able to gain the upper hand in this clash. Ao Mingyu could actually use a mystic technique to kill the humanoid jade beast. That was an extremely fearsome lightning technique. However, he immediately backed down after recalling Lin's uncanny lightning manipulation technique. He had provoked a powerful human mighty figure, and he was afraid that the lightning he summoned would target him again. Furthermore, that technique was extremely energy-consuming, and he didn't have any allies here, so he could easily be targeted. Ao Mingyu was still battling the humanoid jade beast when Gu Luo flew toward him with ulterior motives. In the distance, Cassidy and Merlin also flew toward him with even more ulterior motives. They were already preparing spell techniques. Indignation and resentment flashed through Ao Mingyu's eyes. He let loose an enraged roar as white clouds suddenly materialized around his body. Dragon Tribe Mystic Technique, Cloud Gallop. Whoosh! Ao Mingyu's speed broke through the sound barrier as he abruptly fled into the distance. The humanoid jade beast wanted to give chase, but Ao Mingyu was simply too fast for it to catch up. Gu Luo had initially planned to capture this lone humanoid jade beast, but he hesitated momentarily at the sight of Cassidy and Merlin before giving up on that idea and fleeing in another direction. Cassidy and Merlin didn't give chase upon seeing the two of them fleeing so quickly. Instead, they pounced toward the final humanoid jade beast. The humanoid jade beast was very powerful, but it was still far too weak in the face of the combined attacks of two Blood Tribe Return to Void Stage mighty figures. It was soon defeated, and the Golden Realm Essence crystals in its heart were extracted. Thus, Cassidy and Merlin each obtained 0.5 milliliters of holy blood. And Lin also obtained a Golden Realm Essence crystal, and he was elated. He now had a total of 32 Golden Realm Essence crystals. If other Return to Void Stage mighty figures were to find out about this, they would probably piss themselves in fear. This was too shocking, okay? In the Void Star section, the total number of Golden Realm Essence crystals that an ancient power possessed probably couldn't even compare to Lin's. He was a Realm Essence crystal tycoon. Luck had played a role in this bountiful harvest, so Lin wasn't going to get too smug. He swallowed a blood chi pill before carving out a cave on a jade mountain before resting and waiting for the side effects of the origin energy of the netherworld to wear off. Chapter 539. This time, Lin had taken pills and self-detonated, so he felt like he would need a rest for a few days before he could recover. However, much to his surprise, he was able to fully recover after only half a day. This was all due to the astonishing resilience and regenerative abilities of his body of the war god. And Lin even felt like if he could use the origin energy of the netherworld for a very short period of time, he would be able to avoid the side effects of being unable to circulate his vital energy. Master, are you all right now? Cassidy quickly accepted the fact that Lin had to rest for a while after unleashing his full power. After all, the ancient Tai Chu realm didn't allow mighty figures of the Return to Void final stage or above to enter. If they did, they would suffer backlash from the power of the laws of heaven and earth. In her eyes, Lin had forcefully exposed his true power and suffered backlash from the power of the laws of heaven and earth. This was a very logical deduction. I'm fine now. Let's continue to search for Golden Realm Essence crystals. And Lin took a deep breath before swallowing another blood spirit pill. Only then did he begin to rise into the air atop his brick. Master, if you find it inconvenient to fly on your brick, I can fly with you in my arms. It's so warm and soft. Cassidy made her way over to Lin with a seductive smile and puffed out her proud chest as she spoke in a gentle voice. Master, I can carry you too. Merlin immediately chimed in. And Lin's face convulsed as he shook his head. It's fine, I'll just carry little Tion. He hugged Shui Zhantian tightly as he spoke. Shui Zhantian was warm and soft to the touch. Shui Zhantian. Everyone continued to search for mountain nodes around the Jade Mountain to see if there were any strange places like the ones they had encountered earlier. Since they had to search along the way, they didn't use their spatial powers. Instead, they continued to fly in the air. They encountered a few jade beasts along the way, including tiger-shaped jade beasts, snake-shaped jade beasts, and falcon-shaped jade beasts. Unfortunately, they either didn't have any realm essence crystals within their bodies, or they were all white or green in color. After searching for an entire day, they still came up empty-handed. Perhaps we should go somewhere else. We've already explored the entire mountain range, Merlin said with a resigned expression. And Lin heaved a forlorn sigh. Do you know any other places that have a higher probability of finding realm essence crystals? There's a place that you should know about, Cassidy. A large number of realm essence crystals often appear there. However, that place is very perilous to humans as it's a favorite place of the Void Spirit tribe. Merlin was a little hesitant. What are you afraid of? Don't you know how powerful our master is? Cassidy retorted. You really don't know my strength. And Lin panicked a little. The Void Spirit tribe was the most peculiar tribe on the Tai Chu continent. They possessed all types of curses and soul techniques, and they could use tens of thousands of unimaginable methods to kill a person. Then what's the relationship between the Void Spirit tribe and your blood tribe? And Lin couldn't help but ask. They're neither friend nor foe. They won't fight when they meet, and they won't help when they encounter enemies. However, we can't rule out the possibility that they'll kick us when we're down, Cassidy explained. And Lin nodded. Let's go then. I'm now your mobile blood bank. I believe they won't take the initiative to provoke you and attack your blood bank. Merlin's chest constricted upon hearing this, and an indescribable sense of sorrow welled up in his heart. After a brief discussion, Merlin and Cassidy tore open a spatial rift and stepped into it with Lin and Shui Zhantian in tow. Their destination was the central plate of the Void Star section, the Realm of Dead Spirits. The Realm of Dead Spirits was the name that everyone used to refer to this region. This region held an extremely important position in the ancient Tai Chu realm. Many mighty figures had explored this region and gathered information about it, and everyone believed that it was very likely that this was the central region of the ancient Tai Chu realm. The extremely prosperous region had now been reduced to dust. Only the countless specters remained in that area, roaming around nonstop. Some of them were violent and cruel, some of them had no desires, and some of them were filled with grief and sorrow. This could be said to be the most lively place in the ancient Tai Chu realm. It was filled with the voices of all types of wandering souls, and some of them could even converse with one another like normal living beings. The Void Spirit tribe members of the Void Spirit realm loved this place, as there were many delicious wandering souls here. Even though not all of the wandering souls could be eaten, they would always be ecstatic when they found one. Within an ancient city, this was a vast expanse of white and yellow buildings. Many of the buildings had already been eroded to the ground, and some of them had already been reduced to dust by the passage of time. A tall black tower stood at the center of the ancient city. It was constructed from some unknown material, but even after such a long time, it still showed no signs of decay. Instead, it was glowing like a firefly under the starry night sky. A black spatial rift appeared in the air. A seductive woman in a black robe arrived here with a man and a white ball in tow. Behind her, there was a man with short golden hair and a slightly thin figure. This is the realm of dead spirits. According to our calculations, we should be in the southwest direction of the realm of dead spirits, the woman said. And Lin looked down at the dilapidated ancient city down below. There were all types of courtyards and pavilions that stretched as far as the eye could see. Just from this alone, he could imagine how prosperous this place must have been in the past. Not only do we have to be wary of the void spirit tribe here, but we also have to be careful of falling into illusions. The illusions here are very powerful, and 2 blood tribe seniors were driven insane by the illusions here 2,000 years ago, Merlin cautioned. And Lin's heart jolted with shock upon hearing this. Most returned to void stage powerful beings had extremely powerful Tao hearts. Even so, they were driven insane by the illusions here? Just how terrifying would the illusions be? I heard that fragments of the realm core will appear here. Master, how much blood is the reward for 1 fragment of the realm core? Cassidy looked at Enlin with an expectant expression. Enlin was perplexed. What the F***CK was a fragment of the realm core. Before he had a chance to say anything, Merlin chuckled lightly. You still want to find fragments of the realm core? You sure know how to dream. Things like that can only be found by chance. After a round of exploration in the ancient Taichu realm, the 16 ancient powers may not even be able to find a single fragment of the realm core. And Lin was quite surprised to hear this. 10 milliliters of blood for 1 fragment of the realm core. Cassidy and Merlin both turned to look at Enlin with peculiar expressions on their faces, as if they wanted to say something, but were hesitant to do so. Master, do you have some kind of misunderstanding regarding the realm core? Cassidy hesitated momentarily before deciding to speak. Enlin blinked with a sheepish expression. What is it? Is the price wrong? Merlin immediately provided an explanation. When a world collapses, the matter within it is converted into realm essence crystals, which can also be used to rebuild the world. The laws of that world and the Tao of all things converge to form the realm core. Fragments of the realm core are objects that have been infused with the laws of the world and the Tao of all things. It can be said that each and every fragment of the realm core is invaluable, regardless of whether it is used to construct the core of a world or to progress to the Tao integration stage. And Lin's eyes lit up upon hearing this. That sounded like it was going to be very valuable. But why didn't Emperor Ziwei mention this? Oh, right, this was something that could only be found in the Void Star section. Celestial immortals of the Return to Void stage should know about it, but it was useless for Soul Formation stage cultivators to know about it. And Lin pondered for a moment before replying, 30 milliliters of blood for 1 fragment of the realm core. Expressions of elation appeared on Cassidy and Merlin's faces upon hearing this. Let's go, Master. Let's go find the fragments of the realm core. Cassidy was extremely excited. No, our priority is to find the golden realm essence crystals. And Lin replied with a serious expression. That's true. Fragments of the realm core can only be found by chance, so we'll just have to go with the flow. Master is quite clear-headed. Merlin praised with a smile. And Lin heaved a forlorn sigh in his heart. His lifeblood was the most important, so he had to be clear-headed. Chapter 540. As Enlin walked along the streets of the ancient city, balls of twisted black energy flew past him, bringing with them bursts of bone-chilling cold. These balls of twisted black energy were unconscious spirits that roamed the city all day long. They wouldn't attack people of their own volition, but those with weaker consciousnesses could still be injured if they were to accidentally collide into them. Merlin's flag played a very important role in this situation. He used the flag to release a few powerful battle spirits to open up a path ahead of him. The wandering spirits seemed to be able to sense the killing intent imbued by the battle spirits and would all automatically avoid them. Steam buns. Piping hot steamed meat buns. Sir, this is the most unique seafood restaurant in Qilu City. Would you like to come in and have a try? Come. The North Star Miscellaneous Goods Shop is a very honest shop. Young master, come over here. We have the prettiest girls here. One voice after another reverberated through the streets, as if they were recounting the bustling days of the past. And Lin didn't feel like there was anything to be afraid of. Instead, he looked around at the surrounding spirits with a hint of sympathy. He didn't really understand how these wandering souls existed, nor did he understand why these wandering souls, which even the Void Spirit tribe detested and refused to devour, existed. They weren't pure bodies of energy, nor were they true life forms. Instead, They were more like traces of life that had once existed. As they traversed through the ancient city, there were countless talking spirits everywhere. And Lin shook his head and heaved a light sigh with a hint of disappointment on his face. He had always felt that, as a spirit, they should be very eerie and quiet, occasionally blowing cold winds into the ears of lone travelers to scare them. Wailing spirits all over the streets. What the F***CK? This was completely out of character. After walking for a while longer, a female spirit in a red dress with a deathly pale complexion suddenly emerged from the ground. The female spirit let loose a piercing shriek as soon as she appeared, and her piercing shriek caused the ground to crack open. And Lin and the others covered their ears while Merlin slapped the female spirit to death with a disgruntled expression. These types of special spirits seemed to drop some items after they were killed. For example, this female spirit dropped blue realm essence crystals after she was slapped to death. Not long after, a butcher who was more than 10 meters tall came out with a cleaver in his hand. The fat butcher let out a strange cry as he charged at Lin and the others. The kitchen knife in his hand rose and fell, creating a sharp sound as it sliced through the air. He was then slapped to death by Merlin with an impatient palm. After the apparition disappeared, a green realm essence crystal appeared on the ground. Who would have thought that such a large specter would drop something worse than the female specter? There were many monsters along the way, and Lin and the others pondered for a moment before heading straight for the Black Tower in the center of the ancient city. The pagoda was over 1,000 meters tall and extremely thick. It stood in the center of the ancient city like a giant pillar that could support the heavens. It's such an obvious tower. If there was anything good inside, it would have been taken long ago, right? Lin said helplessly. However, Cassidy didn't seem to think so, and she said, "You're still underestimating the vastness of the Void Star section. There are many places that we only have a rough idea of, and there are still many unexplored and unknown places. Besides, even if a place has been plundered in the past, it's still possible for new realm essence crystals to appear after 500 years. Merlin also explained. They had already accepted the fact that their master was very bad *SS, but his knowledge of the Void Star section was very limited. Hence, they were very patient in their explanations. Before they knew it, they had arrived at the foot of the tower. To their surprise, there were two elderly men in red robes standing outside the tower. "Welcome, welcome, welcome, esteemed guests, to the star-plucking tower." Such a polite welcome, and Lin's lips twitched. Logically speaking, this scene was very strange, especially when the city was filled with specters, as if they had heard in Lin's words. The two elderly men in red robes spoke again. Friends from afar. A tall and thin elderly man waggled his head. "How delightful!" A short and stocky elderly man chimed in. Shuizhantian was also very excited. "Master, these two elderly men don't look like idiotic spirits. They're so interesting, full of wit and endless profundities." Merlin raised a hand with an impatient expression. "Why don't we just slap them to death?" And Lin felt like Merlin was right. To think that there were people in the ancient Taichu realm who could recite the Analects of Earth. He was just about to nod in agreement when the two elderly men became excited again. "Woo-woo, eat the apple of the wild." The tall and thin elderly man waggled his head. "I have guests to play the lute and the flute." The stocky elderly man chimed in. His voice had only just fallen when the stocky elderly man pulled out a guqin from somewhere before slapping his hands onto the strings. Merlin's hand was also extremely fast. Almost at the exact same moment, his massive crimson palm descended from the sky with a vast and powerful aura. The crimson palm hadn't even reached the ground, but a massive palm indentation had already appeared on the ground. "Ha! Ha!" The tall and thin elderly man unleashed a fist toward the massive palm in the sky. His fist caused spatial cracks to appear all over the place, and the space around him was twisted into an oblate shape. The monstrous power behind his fist shattered the massive crimson palm, and the shockwaves created by the fist proliferated outward for close to 10 kilometers, causing even the black pagoda to tremor slightly. But you don't reciprocate. The tall and thin elderly man remained calm and collected. You're molesting me. The stocky elderly man interjected. The tall and thin elderly man extended 2 index fingers and abruptly jabbed his own temple. The stocky elderly man plucked the strings of his guqin. Whoosh, a peculiar sound wave proliferated outward. The space around them twisted and warped as boundless energy and matter enshrouded the entire space. Be careful. This is a forced, illusionary realm. Cassidy yelled in a panicked voice. And Lin's heart jolted with shock upon hearing this, and he immediately unleashed a defensive spell technique to enshroud his body. However, in the next instant, he felt as if his head had been struck by the sound wave. Then, in a trance, everything around him changed. The bright sun shone down upon the earth, and a light breeze blew past as all types of scents began to waft through the air. There was the scent of buns, the scent of noodles, and even the scent of rouge from a woman walking past him. That's right, he was surrounded by a bustling crowd. And Lin blinked in bewilderment as he looked around at the vibrant and bustling streets before him. Hey, Mom, buy me a candied haw. I want that. A crisp, pleasant voice sounded. An adorable little girl with braided hair tugged on the hand of a woman as she spoke to a vendor on the side of the road with an excited expression. All right, I'll get it for you right away. A warm smile appeared on the woman's face as she led the little girl toward the vendor. Out of the way. Just as Lin was feeling a little dazed, his body was suddenly pushed to the side. Then, a wooden hand-pulled cart filled with goods slowly pulled past him. This was a very realistic feeling. Regardless of whether it was the scene before him, the sounds, the sense of touch, the sense of smell, or the flow of vital energy, everything was extremely realistic, as if he were in a real world. However, Lin knew that this was all an illusion. No matter how realistic it was, he had already determined in his heart that this was an illusionary realm. However, Lin was starting to get a headache. He knew that this was only an illusionary realm that the 2 red-robed elderly men had used against him. But how was he supposed to break through this illusionary realm? He had no idea. Chapter 541. Lin fell into a daze. He had never learned any spell technique that could break through illusions. Could he break through this illusion with brute force? Use absolute brute force to break through this illusion? Lin's storage ring flashed, and the evil-slaying sword appeared in his hand. Thankfully, his power and cultivation base didn't seem to be affected, which made things a lot easier. At this moment, he was going to blast a hole in the sky. Husband. It was also at this moment that an extremely pleasant and familiar voice sounded. Lin's body trembled as he turned to look. There, a woman in a jade dress stood with a wide smile on her face, and her beautiful features were extremely enchanting under the sunlight. She stood there as if nothing else mattered to her. Lin only had eyes for her. The appearance of that beautiful woman had completely tugged at Lin's heartstrings. Lin drew a sharp intake of breath upon hearing the way she had addressed him. Su Xiaolin, you're calling me husband? Lin's mouth gaped open as he stammered. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed slightly as she rebuked. Lin, what do you mean by that? If I don't call you husband, what should I call you? Lin's heart skipped a beat upon hearing this. Holy sh*t, wife. Lin pounced toward her excitedly. However, his pouncing body was pushed away by Su Xiaolan with a blush on her face. We're on the streets, and there are so many people around. Can't you keep a low profile? Lin nodded repeatedly. All right, I'll keep a low profile. He held on to Su Xiaolan's soft hand as he spoke, and they began strolling on the streets. Su Xiaolan didn't refuse. Instead, she looked at Lin with a judgmental expression. Have you bought the tool refinement materials that I asked you to buy? Huh. All right, wife, let's go buy them now. Lin faltered momentarily before replying. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes at Lin and pulled him towards the Starstone Pavilion. Wife, what happened? Nothing. I just want to shout a few more times. You should call me husband a few more times. I want to hear it. Crazy. And Lin was very happy because he and Su Xiaolan had actually become Dao companions. This feeling of happiness really moved people to tears. He knew that this was just an illusion. However, this very real environment and very real people made him feel a little reluctant. For some reason, he wanted to enjoy this kind of time a little longer. Most of the surrounding houses and pavilions were yellow and white wooden structures, looking extremely exquisite and beautiful. There were also some buildings made of white jade bricks that were 5 or 6 stories tall. There were some unknown totems carved on the surface, and they looked very beautiful. The most eye-catching thing was the black tower in the center of the city. It pierced straight into the clouds, and under the illumination of the 2 suns, it actually reflected a colorful brilliance. That's right, the location of this illusion was none other than Qilu City. The 2 red-robed, elderly men didn't seem to be hiding anything from him. They wanted him to know where he lived and what kind of life he led. Crackle, crackle. A series of firecrackers sounded as a mature and dignified groom rode down the street on horseback. Behind him was a grand wedding procession. 8 bearers carried an exquisitely decorated sedan chair behind the groom, and joyous music began to play along the way. Huh, who's having a wedding today? It's young Master Qinzhan from the Chun family. He's going to marry Wang Lele from the Wang family today. They're a match made in heaven. They've been together for 12 years, and they've finally come to fruition today. I heard they're holding a banquet at Fortune Inn, and everyone in the city can attend. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go and grab a seat. The onlookers on the street discussed spiritedly, and Lin was also affected by the festive atmosphere, and he couldn't help but tighten his grip on Su Xiaolan's hand. His heart was filled with joy and sweetness. Under the starry night sky, the black tower was still standing. Outside the tower, there were 3 people and a snow soul beast bound by some unknown black tree branches. All of them had their eyes tightly shut, and serene smiles appeared on their faces, as if they were having a beautiful dream. The short and rotund elderly man had just finished playing his piece, but the music still lingered in the air, as if even heaven and earth were unwilling to let this piece of music die down. Let's go, LV Chung. Carry them away, the short and rotund elderly man instructed. The tall and rotund elderly man nodded before making a grabbing motion toward the 3 people and 1 beast who had fallen into a deep slumber on the ground. The black tree branches wriggled, and the 3 people and 1 beast on the ground floated into the air. The tall and rotund elderly man began to walk into the black tower. The 3 people and 1 beast were also bound by the black tree branches, and they slowly followed behind him, disappearing into the darkness. The short and rotund elderly man stowed away his zither-like musical instrument before looking up at the starry night sky with a profound expression. A land of warmth and tenderness. This is a place where one is willing to sink into even if they know it's fake. Isn't the purpose of life to be happy and to realize one's dreams? If everything in one's mind could be realized in an illusion, and the senses of an illusion were exactly the same as reality, then what was the difference between an illusion and reality? Perhaps the difference is that illusionary realms are more blissful. All of a sudden, a hint of confusion appeared on the short and rotund elderly man's face. Am I imagining things? Why do I feel like something's different? And Lin and Su Xiaolan went to the Starstone Pavilion to purchase a pile of tool refinement materials before making their way home. And Lin, I feel like something's different about you. Su Xiaolan held onto Enlin's hand with furrowed brows as she cocked her little head to the side to look at Enlin. Wife, call me husband. Enlin spoke with a serious expression. Su Xiaolan, wife, what do you think is different about me? Enlin asked with a hint of interest in his voice. You've become even more wretched than before. Su Xiaolan chuckled. Enlin was surprised. Who would talk about their husband like that? Su Xiaolan waved her hand. All right. I don't care if you're wretched or not. I'm already married to you, so I can only accept my fate. Let's go home. And Lin was very touched upon hearing this. He suddenly thought of something. Wifey, can we do that tonight? What? Su Xiaolan blinked her beautiful eyes as she asked curiously. That is the exercise that husband and wife often do at night. And Lin replied in a low voice. Su Xiaolan seemed to have sensed what Lin was talking about, and a blush appeared on her delicate and fair face. Her face was like a delicious red apple that one couldn't help but want to kiss. How can you say this in public? Are you crazy? She glared at Lin with a reproachful expression as she pinched Lin's waist with her slender fingers. Gasp! Lin was struck by quite a bit of pain. He hurriedly smiled apologetically. All right, let's talk at home. By the way, where is our home? Lin came to his senses and suddenly asked, Su Xiaolan, so not only have you become wretched, but you've also lost your mind. Although Su Xiaolan was a little grumpy, she still brought Lin to their home. It was a very large courtyard that looked extremely familiar. The signboard was still the Lan Lin courtyard. Young Master Lin, you're back. Do you want to eat cherries? The cherries have ripened recently, so we bought a lot of them. They're currently in the kitchen. A beautiful young woman walked over with a wide grin. This young woman was also very familiar, and Lin thought for a moment before finally remembering who she was. Oh, her name was Little Chio, Big Brother, and why did you spend so much time shopping today? We're all waiting for you to start eating woof. Dabai ran out from the courtyard with an enraged expression, and Lin looked at his familiar beast pets. Xiaohong was swaying its bright red head from side to side as it continued to photosynthesize in a carefree manner. Shui Zhantian was acting cute to the four spring, summer, autumn, and winter maids, and the adorably ugly clown was playing with the little wolf with a banana as they chased each other around the courtyard. Everything was so peaceful and tranquil. Little Lin Xiaolan, come on in. Yudi has already finished cooking. It's her signature braised pork knuckle. And Ming Xuan walked out of the hall with a smile on his face as he spoke to Lin. Lin faltered upon hearing this, and his eyes widened as his breathing accelerated. Dad, who were you talking about? He asked in a trembling voice. Little Lin, what are you waiting for? Come on in, the food is getting cold, a warm and pleasant voice sounded. Immediately afterward, a woman walked out. She wore a white dress and looked at Lin with a warm smile on her face. Her eyes were filled with tenderness and doting. Lin stared blankly at the woman before him as waves of shock surged through his heart. The memories buried deep in his heart became clearer and clearer, and tears began to flow from his eyes. Mom! Chapter 542. Lin's mother was called Mu Yudi, who died in a sudden car accident. It was also because of that car accident that his father began to be depressed. In order to vent his emotions, he contracted the habit of gambling. After that, his father lost all his fortune and was still in debt of millions. Lin was caught by the debt collectors, and then he met the mysterious immortal, and from then on embarked on the road of cultivation. All of this could be said to be interlinked. Without any of the links, there could not be the current Lin. However, now his mother suddenly appeared in front of Lin. Resurrection from the dead? No, all of this was fake, an illusory world. How could there be resurrection from the dead? But, and Lin stared at his mother's face in front of him, feeling the breath, listening to her words, for fear that she would disappear again. So similar, really similar, whether it was the smile or the voice, it was no different from the appearance in his memory. Linzi, why are you crying? Mu Yudi frowned, walked over and pulled in Lin's hand, and asked with concern, what happened? Su Xiaolan was also given a fright, and she stared at Lin with confusion on her face. And Lin wiped his tears, resisted the urge to rush over and hug his mother, and shook his head. Nothing, just remembered some sad past. Let's go in and eat. In the dining room, the big plate of braised pork knuckle was placed together with some other dishes particularly conspicuous. And Lin remembered that when he was a child, he was very picky about his food, especially thin. At that time, his mother made up her mind to study how to cook pork knuckle. It was said that eating pork knuckle would make you gain weight. Aren't you thin? Aren't you picky about your food? See how I feed you. Then, the delicious braised pork knuckle was born, and his mother succeeded in conquering Lin's stomach with cooking. And Lin, who was in junior high school, became 80 kilograms from 80 kilograms. Then his mother decided not to make braised pork knuckle for Enlin to eat. When Enlin heard the news, he, a fatty who weighed more than 50 kilograms, burst into tears like a child. It was really embarrassing. In order to eat braised pork knuckle again, Enlin worked hard to lose weight. He finally lost weight during high school. Mrs. N also promised to make braised pork knuckle for him after the college entrance examination. At that time, he had made a good plan. After all, he wouldn't be able to go home when he was in university. Even if he ate pork knuckles every day, he wouldn't get fat. In the end, an accident happened after the college entrance examination. The delicacy that Enlin had yearned for many years would never be able to taste again. Enlin sat on the chair, picked up a pork knuckle with his chopsticks, and gnawed on it. Fresh, smooth, and fragrant, fat, but not greasy. It was the same familiar smell, the same familiar formula, and the same taste that he had been longing for. Why did the taste of pork knuckle feel so real here? It was obviously fake. He had almost forgotten what it tasted like. He only remembered that it was very delicious. Why was his braised pork knuckle able to evoke the taste in his memories? Why was it so similar to the pork knuckle his mother had once made? Tears streamed down Enlin's face once again. Su Xiaolan and Ming Chuan and Mu Yuti were all dumbstruck. Why was he crying again? Little Lin, are you really all right? And Ming Chuan couldn't help but ask. And Lin immediately shook his head. I'm fine. It's just that the pork knuckle is so delicious that I'm crying. And Ming Chuan's face convulsed slightly. Please find a better excuse. A warm smile appeared on Mu Yuti's face as she picked up a piece of pork knuckle and placed it into Enlin's bowl. Then eat more. Mom will make more for you in the future. You're a cultivator now anyway, so you won't get fat from eating too much. Enlin nodded with a sour expression as he picked up a second piece of braised pork knuckle and began eating. Before he knew it, he had eaten more than half of the large plate of pork knuckle. After reuniting, his family began to chat with one another. They talked about running the clinic, as well as interesting news about Qilu City and the entire Taichu continent. And Lin cherished this period of time very much, even though he knew that it was all fake. However, he still felt a sense of warmth from their interactions. Was there anything better than having the people closest to him and the people he loved the most by his side? After dinner, the stars shone in the sky. And Lin walked into the courtyard and looked up at the moonless night sky with a myriad of thoughts running through his mind. You're acting a little strange today. A gentle, pleasant voice sounded beside his ear again. And Lin turned around to discover a pair of beautiful eyes staring back at him. Her features were a little less vibrant and enchanting under the dazzling starlight, but a hint of gentleness appeared on her face instead. That's right, I've suddenly become sentimental. And Lin smiled. You're not being too sentimental. Su Xiaolan cocked her head to the side as a complex smile appeared on her face. I feel like you're not him. And Lin's eyes widened as he stared at Su Xiaolan with incredulity etched on his face. Never would he have thought that Su Xiaolan would say something like this. Are you surprised? A faint smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she said, In the beginning, I also thought that you were just having some emotional issues. However, I later discovered that even though you're Enlin, you're not the Enlin that I know. Her eyes shifted slightly as if she was thinking about how to phrase her words. You have the same appearance and personality as him, but you're like an Enlin with a different set of experiences. And Lin was truly astonished this time as a peculiar feeling welled up in his heart. Was this an illusion or reality? What kind of world was this? You're still that smart and understanding Xiaolan. And Lin smiled as he admitted his identity. Then can you tell me about the Enlin that you know? Su Xiaolan narrowed her eyes with a smile. I'd love to, but you have to return Enlin to me after that. Enlin smiled awkwardly. I'm Enlin, but you're not the Enlin that shares memories with me. If it weren't for the fact that your eyes are so familiar, I would have thought that you've been possessed. Su Xiaolan glared at Enlin. Enlin was a little speechless as he nodded. All right, after I leave this place, your Enlin should be able to come back. Su Xiaolan began to recount how she and Enlin had met. They had met in the divine court of the human race on this continent, and they were disciples from the same sect. They became acquainted, and experienced a series of unforgettable events. The two of them finally became Tao partners on the 100th year after they met. It was also at that time that Enlin revealed his biggest secret. He actually came from a faraway planet, and he wasn't a native of this Tai Chu continent. Instead, he had transmigrated here. Su Xiaolan didn't mind this, and she and Enlin brought his parents over to this continent. They held a wedding ceremony with them as witnesses, and they lived happily ever after on this continent. This was a very long story, and Enlin was a little dumbstruck after hearing it all. It was a completely different, yet equally spectacular experience, and there were also some unforgettable memories that only the two of them could share. The environment on Earth was the same, but it was a different Tai Chu continent. After hearing Su Xiaolan's story, he felt like either this was true, or those two red-robed elderly men were great scriptwriters. How King difficult was it to create an illusionary realm to this extent? And Lin heaved a long sigh, and a complex expression appeared on his face as he looked at the woman before him. Another Enlin? Another Su Xiaolan? There were also beast pets and friends who had been brought together by fate. Their experiences were different, but their personalities were the same. Another Enlin. Enlin was a little envious of him. This was probably the happiest life he could imagine. But none of this was his, after all. Perhaps, regardless of whether it was reality or illusion, it was time for him to bid farewell to this world. Chapter 543. Everything here was so realistic, and in Lin's mind, the line between illusion and reality became more and more blurry. The thought of staying here flashed through his mind for a split second, but he quickly cast it aside. Even if all of the living beings in this world were real, Xiaolan, his friends, and his family were all waiting for him in the other world. How could he leave this place? So the question was, how is he going to get back? Enlin's brows furrowed in thought. He had actually heard that some illusionary realms could be broken by killing all of the people that one knew in the illusionary realm and severely wounding the core of the illusionary realm. But was this really an illusionary realm? Even if it was an illusionary realm, Enlin couldn't bring himself to kill all of his family, friends, and loved ones. Also, what if they were real? Divine inspection technique. Enlin's eyes suddenly became a vast expanse of white as he surveyed his surroundings, trying to find a flaw in this world. However, to his disappointment, there were no signs of spell techniques here. Let's see if I can use my power to break through this world. Origin energy of the netherworld. Black mist suddenly erupted from his body, and his aura soared explosively. At the same time, golden void lightning revolved around his evil-slaying sword as he slashed a dazzling sword strike toward the sky. The terrifying golden void lightning sword projection lit up the entire night sky, and it soared into the sky amid a sharp screech before flying higher and higher into the sky. After flying for what seemed like an eternity, the lightning energy began to slowly dissipate. It was useless, and Lin deactivated the origin energy of the netherworld with a dejected expression on his face. Enlin, do you not know how to get back? Su Xiaolan could guess what was going on from Enlin's expression, and a concerned expression appeared on her face. An awkward smile appeared on Enlin's face, and a thought suddenly occurred to him as he pulled out his vermilion bird mirror. Mirror, mirror, tell me where I am, and how do I get back? The vermilion bird mirror shuddered slightly, and a tender voice sounded. Master, you're on the Tai Chu continent. Get back. Where? Get your wife to lead the way, and don't bother me. Enlin, Su Xiaolan covered her mouth and laughed. You still dare to ask the mirror questions? It's not like you don't know her bad temper. If you continue talking, she'll choke you until you can't even sleep well. Enlin's mouth twitched. My mirror can't be that irritable. Hearing this, Su Xiaolan seemed to realize something, and a look of disappointment appeared on her face. Yeah, you're not him. Enlin didn't have time to sigh. He was still thinking of a way to break out of this situation. A thought suddenly occurred to him, and he looked up at the black tower at the center of Qilu City. Xiaolan, I'm leaving now. Enlin rose into the air atop his brick. Enlin, you'll definitely come back, right? Him, or you? Su Xiaolan's beautiful eyes looked at Enlin in the air as she spoke anxiously. And Lin's body trembled slightly as he turned to look at the woman below. The woman stood silently under the starlight with tears shimmering in her eyes. And Lin's heart jolted, but he didn't say anything. He merely nodded at the woman before flying toward the Black Tower. Qilu City was brightly lit at night, and the streets were bustling with activity, as if it were a city that never slept. There was also a white light flashing at the top of the Black Tower, as if it were a divine tower that illuminated the night sky. And Lin arrived at the gate of the Black Tower, and to his surprise, there really were two red-robed guards. One was tall and thin, while the other was short and chubby. These two guards were quite young and not as elderly as the guards he had encountered before, but from their facial features, and Lin could tell that they were the two elderly men he had encountered before. "You're here, how do you feel?" The short and chubby guard forced a smile onto his face at the sight of Lin, as if he wasn't surprised at all. And Lin faltered slightly as a peculiar feeling welled up in his heart. "Who are you? And what is this place?" The short and chubby guard explained, "We are the guardians of Qilu City. No, to put it more accurately, we are the guardians of the entire Yanglu Nation. As you can see, this is the Taichu continent's Qilu City." And Lin chuckled coldly. "Qilu City has been reduced to rubble a long time ago. This world is merely an illusionary realm." The short and chubby young man shook his head. "What is reality? What is an illusionary realm? If everything you see and feel is completely true, then how could it be called an illusion?" The tall and thin young man also turned to Lin. "You have two choices now. You can work hard to assimilate into this world. That way, you'll be the only Lin, and you'll be able to live here happily ever after. You can also kill everyone you know to sever this karma. That way, you'll be able to sever everything in this world and return to your original world." And Lin's heart jolted upon hearing this, but he then seemed to have realized something, and a faint smile appeared on his face. They were speaking as if they were telling the truth. They said he only had two choices. So did that mean he only had two choices? And Lin wasn't going to believe this. He still had a trump card that he hadn't used yet. Divine simulation technique. Countless stars flashed past Lin's eyes, and in the end, this entire world was reflected in his eyes. Colorless ripples began to proliferate outward, reflecting every single detail of this entire world. Countless pieces of information began to flow into his mind. Reasonable, unreasonable. The two red-robed young men's expressions both shifted. At this moment, the ground had already cracked open, and Lin leaped up and shot toward the top of the Black Tower like a cannonball. The origin energy of the netherworld instantly erupted, and golden void lightning revolved around his evil-slaying sword as he slashed down toward the Black Tower. The top of the Black Tower, which was flashing with a white light, was struck by the lightning sword projection, and the entire night sky was dyed golden by the explosion of golden lightning. Countless residents of Qilu City turned to look at the golden lightning on the tower with astonishment and bewilderment on their faces. Within the Lan Lin courtyard, Mu Yudi held onto Mingchuan's hand as they looked up at the tower in the distance. The golden lightning there had already exploded to form a dazzling and beautiful golden ball of lightning. Boom! The tip of the Black Tower was shattered by Lin's sword projection. The space around him began to twist and shatter. And in Lin's eyes, heaven and earth began to dim and blur. His vision darkened, and he fell unconscious again. The two red-robed young men wore complex expressions as they watched Lin disappear from this world. The stocky young man shook his head and heaved a forlorn sigh. "So be it. My heart doesn't belong to this world, so why force it to stay?" The tall and thin young man nodded. "Since I've already given up on pursuing the illusion of a dream, how can it become real?" Within a vast expanse of inky darkness, Lin's body shuddered as he began to regain consciousness. He opened his eyes to find a vast expanse of white in front of him. How dazzling! Upon closer inspection, he discovered that this was a fragment that was glowing with a white light. The fragment seemed to be both real and illusionary at first glance, and it looked like a solid object. However, when one thought it was solid, it became illusory. When one thought it was illusory, it became solid again. And Lin blinked with curiosity. What was this? Chapter 544. And Lin didn't know what the white fragment hovering in midair was, but he could tell from its appearance that it was definitely not an ordinary fragment. He was just about to rise to his feet to take care of it when he discovered that his body had been bound by a peculiar type of black tree branch and was completely immobilized. Crap, what is this? Why can't I even use any strength? And Lin struggled with all his might, only to find that he couldn't muster up any strength at all. He couldn't even circulate his vital energy. The black tree branch wound around his body, and there was also a thick tentacle extending outward, connecting directly to the bottom of the white fragment before merging into a black stone formation. It's over. This is definitely some kind of evil ritual. And Lin was already envisioning himself becoming a sacrifice, having his blood drained, and becoming a desiccated corpse. He turned to discover Cassidy, Merlin, and Shui Zhantian were also bound by the black tree branch, and they were all still unconscious. They wore sweet smiles on their faces, clearly indicating that they had also entered some kind of beautiful illusionary realm. Aside from them, and Lin saw 3 other people. One of them was an extremely handsome man with short golden hair, with a pair of pristine white wings on his back and a golden bracelet around his neck. One of them was a burly man in a red robe with a golden buzz cut, and his hands were crimson. The last one was an exquisitely beautiful woman in a blue robe with a blue lower body and a blue fishtail. Even though her eyes were tightly shut, one would still be struck by her beauty. And Lin pondered for a moment to determine that the man with short golden hair was most likely a Light-Wing clan mighty figure, while the mermaid-like woman was most likely a Spirit Fish clan mighty figure. As for the man with the buzz cut, he's mine from now on. They had also fallen into a deep slumber, so it appeared that Lin was the only one who had awakened. As expected, I'm still the most powerful. And Lin suddenly heaved a forlorn sigh as he felt invincible. However, what was the use of being powerful? He still couldn't escape from the tree branch. And Lin didn't think that these 2 red-robed elderly men would be the most terrifying bosses here. How did they manage to capture so many return to Void Stage mighty figures for no apparent reason? What were they planning? And Lin didn't feel like that was important. What was important was to get out of here as quickly as possible. Oi! Little Tion, wake up. And Lin did not dare to shout loudly. He could only call out softly. Little Ko, Wheat, wake up. Cassidy, Merlin, stop sleeping, wake up. A sleeping person could be woken up, but how could a person trapped in an illusion be woken up so easily? After 2 tries, and Lin gave up on this method and switched to another one. Cassidy, Merlin, I plan to give you all 1 gene of divine blood. And Lin raised his voice and shouted, Rumble. His voice was like a clap of thunder, causing the 2 of them to tremble. Those who fell into the illusion would have their spiritual consciousness transported to a fabricated dimension, but this did not mean that their organs would not receive information from the outside world. Once the stimulation of the information was strong enough, it might really affect their consciousness. As expected, both of them showed signs of waking up. Get up. I'll give you 3 seconds. After that, 1 gene of divine blood will be gone. And Lin continued. Cassidy's brows furrowed tightly as her lips trembled. No, Master, I'm going to eat you. Merlin licked his lips. Don't run, Master. Let me suck you dry first. And Lin's lips twitched. Just what kind of servants had he taken in? Ha ha. And Lin, I've finally killed you. Shui Zhantian suddenly chortled with glee. And Lin was dumbstruck. He felt like he had just heard something unthinkable. Why did Shui Zhantian want to kill him? And why did he want to kill him? This was most likely a fake beast pet as well. Cassidy and Merlin opened their bleary eyes with confused expressions on their faces. Cassidy came to her senses with a hint of lingering fear on her face. You're back. That was way too scary. I knew it was an illusion, but I couldn't help but enjoy it. If it weren't for that indistinct voice, I probably wouldn't have woken up either. Me too. Merlin nodded in agreement. Cassidy stared at Lin with glowing eyes. Master, I think I heard you say you were going to give us one gene of divine blood. Me too. Merlin nodded in agreement as he stared at Enlin with a scorching light in his eyes. Enlin chuckled. That was the voice of the illusion. I didn't say anything. Cassidy pursed her lips. The voice of the illusion? Is this illusion crazy? Why would it use that kind of voice to wake me up? That illusion really might be crazy. The people inside were trying to persuade me to leave. Enlin pursed his lips. What he said was the truth. The Su Xiaolan in the illusionary realm seemed to have broken the rules. She had awakened him from his illusionary realm, and he no longer yearned to return to his own world. Even though he insisted that it was just an illusion, the feeling of reality made him believe in the bottom of his heart. Perhaps there really was a world that had such a beautiful possibility. Cassidy and Merlin couldn't do anything about Enlin's decision to go back on his word. After all, they had only been able to break out of the illusion thanks to that voice. Right at this moment, Shui Zhantian also opened his big, round eyes with excitement on his face. Congratulations, I did it. What did you do? Enlin asked with a dark expression. Shui Zhantian wasn't woken up by his words. It was quite clear that he had broken out of the illusion with his own power. Shui Zhantian faltered slightly at the sight of Enlin before an awkward smile appeared on his face. Master, it's nothing. I was just saying, I broke out of the illusion. Why did I hear you say you were going to hack me to death? Why are you so happy? Did you succeed and hack me to death? Enlin asked with a fake smile. Shui Zhantian's entire body shuddered upon hearing this, and he fell to his knees as he yelled, I'm innocent. Flying snow in June. I only decided to hack you to death because I knew that master was a fake. All the asterisk cheese who dare to impersonate master deserve to die 1,000 times over. Enlin rolled his eyes and couldn't be bothered to respond to Shui Zhantian's whining. This debt would be settled after they got out of here. We're all trapped here now, so let's think of a way out. Enlin immediately suggested upon seeing that all of his team members had awakened. Cassidy and Merlin didn't react. Instead, they stared blankly at the white fragment before them. You guys also think this thing is extraordinary, right? I think so too. Enlin felt like they had good taste. It's far more than extraordinary. Merlin murmured, This is a fragment of the realm core. Cassidy swallowed, as if she were about to pounce on it. Enlin was dumbstruck. Holy F***CK. So that's a fragment of the realm core. Chapter 545. The fragment of the realm core was right in front of them, but unfortunately, none of them were able to break free from the binding of the black tree branch. Who would have thought that even Tobias would be captured here? Merlin sighed with emotion as he looked at the burly man with a buzz cut. Tobias was the leader of the Blood Tribe Return to Void Stage team. He was extremely powerful, and he was at the pinnacle of the Return to Void Intermediate stage. Let's give him a taste of being purified once we get out of here, Cassidy suggested. These words made Enlin feel very gratified. Then I'll leave it to you. Don't worry, Master. Leave it to me. Cassidy smiled sweetly. Nice. The opportunity to obtain 5 milliliters of divine blood was in his hands. Merlin finally came to his senses, and a remorseful expression appeared on his face. He had missed a golden opportunity. He could only turn his attention to the other 2 powerful beings. After all, killing a Return to Void stage mighty figure and handing over 5 milliliters of holy blood was also a reward. Return to Void stage mighty figures were already considered the most powerful beings on the entire Taichu continent. This circle of mighty figures was very small, and there were only a few of them here and there, so Merlin recognized these 2. Mia, a Return to Void intermediate stage mighty figure of the West Sea Spirit Fish Clan, and the South Priestess of the West Sea Ancient Monsters. Qin Sheng was a Light Wing Clan mighty figure from the Garden of Eden. He was at the pinnacle of the Return to Void intermediate stage and was most likely the team leader of the Return to Void stage team. It seemed like he couldn't beat either of them. Merlin analyzed the situation for a long time before feeling a sense of dejection. Our priority now is to break free from this strange black branch. Do you have any ideas? Asked Enlin. Cassidy and Merlin furrowed their brows and fell silent. Shui Zhantian was a man of action, and he immediately opened his mouth to reveal a pair of sharp canine teeth before biting down on the black branch around his body. However, the branch was extremely tough. No matter how he bit, he couldn't break it. "Oh, I didn't expect you to be awake already." A voice suddenly rang out, scaring everyone. In the next moment, a short and fat old man in red suddenly appeared in front of everyone like a ghost. And Lin's expression changed drastically. There was only one thought left in his mind. "I've been caught red-handed. I'm done for." The chubby old man did not seem surprised to see Lin and the others waking up. However, there was a curious look on his face. "Why did you wake up? Can't that world make you happy?" "I can't. The master of that world doesn't have any scent to his holy blood," Cassidy replied seriously. "I agree." I took a big gulp. "Bah, what the F***CK? Merlin was disdainful. The corner of the chubby old man's mouth twitched. What kind of answer was that? Why did he feel like he couldn't understand it? And Lin, the short and fat old man in red, came back to his senses and coughed lightly. "Even if you are awake, there is no need to struggle. This dark world vine can seal your powers. You can't break free. What exactly do you want?" And Lin asked in a deep voice. "There's no harm in telling you. After all, you are also participants in this plan." The short and fat old man in red looked at them, his eyes filled with vigor as he said, "Our plan is to use the fragment of the realm core to rebuild this world and revive Qi Lu City." "Revive?" And Lin was a little perplexed by this. "That's right, revive. Bring all the living beings on this land back to life. Bring Qi Lu City back to its former glory." The short and fat old man smiled. "Don't joke around. Opening up a world is understandable, but resurrecting living beings is something that's impossible." Cassidy was speechless as she looked at the short and fat old man, as if he were a lunatic. The short and fat old man was not enraged by this. Instead, he offered a slow explanation. "What if the living beings on this land aren't completely dead?" "Not completely dead." Merlin's brows furrowed. "What do you mean by that?" "Those wandering souls." The short and fat old man pointed at the ancient city outside the pagoda and said, "Those wandering souls have been wandering there for countless years. They have always existed there and never died. They were killed by heaven and earth, but they have nowhere to go. Using the fragment of the realm core to turn illusions into reality can create a new world. In order to revive these wandering souls and grant them life, some mighty life forms must sacrifice themselves." He turned toward Lin and the others as a sinister smile appeared on his face. And Lin's blood ran cold at the sight of this sinister expression. Cassidy and Merlin's expressions were also quite grim. They knew that they were most likely going to die here. Death is also the beginning of a new life. "Don't worry." Another voice sounded. Immediately afterward, a tall and thin old man in a red robe appeared before them. "All of you shall live in Qi Lu City with new lives and become the gods of Qi Lu City." He raised his hands high into the air as he looked at Lin and the others. 9 pioneers have already paved the way for you. You are the last batch, and Qi Lu City will reappear today." His voice had only just fallen when a scintillating light suddenly erupted from the fragment of the realm core. Boom! A series of crimson vein patterns suddenly appeared at the base of the black pagoda. These veined patterns continued to expand outward until they encompassed the entire Qi Lu City while glowing with a peculiar light. A pillar of white light erupted into the sky from the base of the pagoda, as if it were going to pierce through the heavens. A peculiar ripple proliferated outward from the tip of the pagoda, resonating with heaven and earth. The white light illuminated the entire world, and the boundless light was pregnant with infinite possibilities. Meanwhile, over 500 kilometers away, the light over there is so bright. There must be a super powerful treasure about to be born. A young woman in a pink dress pointed at the white sky in the distance with an excited expression. A handsome male, sword immortal with a vast and otherworldly aura, looked into the distance with a grave expression, but he still tore open a spatial rift. "Lu Chu Chu, you have to stay behind me." Don't go on your own. No problem, Senior Lu Dongbin. I'll be a good girl. Lu Chuchu grabbed onto Xuan Meng Meng and followed the male sword immortal into the spatial rift with an excited expression. Elsewhere, two silver-haired snow maidens in white robes suddenly looked into the distance, and their expressions shifted at the same time. One of the snow maidens had an ice puppet in her hand, and it was pointing toward the direction of the faint white light as it squeaked incessantly. It's the fragment of the realm core. We finally found it. A holy palace leader was both elated and anxious. Let's hurry over there. We can't let anyone else get to it first. Aren't we going to wait for Rogu? We've already arranged to meet here, and she's already on her way here. The emergence of the realm core has created such a massive commotion that it'll definitely attract a lot of attention. With our current strength, it's very likely that we'll be wounded if we get there too early and encounter some extremely powerful enemy mighty figures. The tall and slender snow maiden was a little hesitant. There's no time to waste. The snow maiden with the ice puppet in her hand stepped into the spatial rift and rushed into the distance. The tall and slender snow maiden shook her head and heaved a forlorn sigh before tearing open the spatial rift and following along. Chapter 546. The fragment of the realm core unleashed its true power, and a pillar of white light soared into the sky under the guidance of the two red-robed elderly men. An invisible energy burst forth for several hundred kilometers, enshrouding the entire Qi-Lu city and the surrounding continent. And Lin discovered that the black tree branches around his body were beginning to squirm and emanate a sinister red light. He looked around with a hint of despair in his eyes, only to find that there was nothing he could do. Was he really going to be trapped in Qi-Lu City forever? He didn't want to accept this. LV Chung, we have more guests, the stocky elderly man suddenly said. The tall and thin elderly man nodded. I'll go capture them and use them as fertilizer. His body disappeared from the tower as he spoke. Lin and the others' expressions shifted slightly upon hearing this, and a glimmer of hope welled up in their hearts. In the air above Qi-Lu City, LV Dongbin tore open a spatial rift and emerged with Lu Chuchu in tow. He looked at the black tower in the distance, and his expression shifted drastically as he swept his divine sense toward it. There are so many return to void stage powerful beings imprisoned here. Even Lin is there. Lu Chuchu's heart jolted with shock. Even Lin is there? Let's go and save him. I'll go and save him as a member of the Celestial Court, regardless of whether it's to repay Shao Tu's favor or to save him. However, our enemies are not to be underestimated, so you have to get as far away from here as possible. LV Dongbin spoke with a serious expression. Lu Chuchu nodded upon hearing this, and she was just about to retreat when a tall and thin elderly man in a red robe suddenly appeared before them. Seeing as you're already here, why don't you join us in our grand plan? Let's go. LV Dongbin suddenly drew his long sword, and a peerlessly sharp white sword projection pierced through heaven and earth before hurtling directly toward the tall and thin elderly man. The tall and thin elderly man didn't take evasive measures. Instead, he threw a punch toward the oncoming sword projection. The boundless fist projection instantly shattered the white sword projection before crashing into Lu Dongbin's body. Terrifying shockwaves transformed into gale-force winds, and even Lu Chuchu, who was standing nearby, was knocked flying. Lu Chuchu was more than happy to borrow this force to retreat with Xuan Mengmeng. At the same time, a golden light flashed through her eyes as she focused her gaze on the summit of the Black Tower. I technique see-through. There were runes circulating in her yellow pupils. The Black Tower became transparent, and the scene inside became clear. Then, she discovered that Lin and the others were entangled by the black branches and could no longer move freely. There's another person? Lu Chuchu's brows furrowed, and she decided not to alert the enemy for now. Lu Dongbin coughed up a mouthful of blood and retreated. He had already used his full strength and hadn't underestimated the red-clothed elder's power. However, he had still been injured by that one move. The power of that punch had already surpassed the power of a mighty figure at the pinnacle of the return to void intermediate stage. However, he could not sense the aura of the old man and read it all. It was as if the old man in front of him was a ghost without any sense of existence. It was also at this moment that the cracks on Chi Lu's city opened up again. Two silver-haired snow maidens walked out and swept their divine scents around them before their eyes lit up. Good chance, Su Jingxiang. A powerful being from the human race is holding off one of the enemies. Let's hurry and fight for the fragment of the realm core. A snow maiden holding an ice soul snowman spoke with excitement in her voice. Oh, is the fragment of the realm core really that easy to obtain? An unhurried voice suddenly sounded. In the next instant, a stocky red-clothed elder appeared before the two snow maidens with a smile on his face. Yanhua, you go. I'll hold him off. Su Jingxiang flipped a hand over, and a white vortex of ice materialized in her palm. Yanhua reacted immediately upon hearing this, and she flew toward the top of the black tower. Su Jingxiang also tossed the white vortex of ice toward the stocky old man at this moment. The white vortex of ice instantly expanded to over a kilometer in size, and boundless frost power began to erode the space around it in a frenzy as a burst of freezing and destructive power swept toward the old man. The stocky old man had already pulled out his guqin at this moment. Illusionary sound of the world expends too much energy. Looks like I'll have to use killing sound. But it's going to be tough on you, little girl. His hands quickly danced over the strings of the guqin as he spoke, and a burst of rapid sound erupted. The space within a radius of 5 kilometers suddenly began to congeal, and the sound waves transformed into countless swords and sabers that tore through the air, tearing the white vortex of ice into specks of white light before flying toward the two snow maidens. Yanhua had only just unleashed a spell technique to break open the congealed space when countless extremely sharp sound wave sabers and sword hurtled toward her. Meanwhile, Su Jingxiang, who had promised to hold off the stocky old man, was also beginning to struggle to protect herself. 15 kilometers away from the Black Tower, Lu Chu drew her pink longbow. A crimson energy arrow had already materialized, and the terrifying temperatures emanating from the arrow made the space around it warp and warp. Divine technique, exploding flame arrow. Whoosh! The arrow left the bow before flying through the air like a shooting star. The target of the exploding flame arrow was none other than the black tree branches on the ground of the tower. The two red-robed elders had both been held off, and now was the time to rescue Enlin. Lu Dongbin had materialized as Lotus Sword formation, and he was ecstatic upon seeing the crimson arrow, and he exerted even more force to hold off the tall and thin old man. Boom! The exploding flame arrow suddenly seemed to have struck something when it was only about 10 feet away from the tower, and it abruptly stopped in mid-air. The space around the black tower began to ripple, and the tip of the arrow was as crimson as blood. A sharp screeching sound erupted forth before it finally exploded with a resounding boom, transforming the entire sky into a sea of flames. The sea of flames crashed into the black tower, only to be separated by a transparent barrier, thereby preventing the tower from being damaged in the slightest. Don't waste your energy. Do you really think the two of us won't set up any defenses around the tower? We're not that stupid, the tall and thin old man said in a calm voice as he continued to attack. His attacks became more and more violent, and each and every one of his punches was imbued with boundless power, as if a mountain were crashing down upon them. Lu Dongbin stumbled back in retreat, and he was on the brink of defeat. He didn't think that there would be a defensive formation here. Was there really no other way? Lu Chu pursed her lips and drew her bow again. Within the Black Tower, Enlin and the others could do nothing but wait for the ceremony to begin. A black tree branch had already transformed into a sharp, tubular mouthpart, which wriggled rhythmically toward their hearts. Shui Zhantian's heart wasn't very obvious, so the tree branch was aimed at their mouths. Shui Zhantian was on the brink of tears, and he considered committing suicide by biting off his tongue. Right at this moment, Enlin suddenly felt like his pocket was a little bloated. No, it was extremely bloated. Holy F asterisk CK. What the hell is this? And Lin felt as if there was a massive object poking into his waist. Then he discovered that his waist suddenly emitted a bright white light. Then there was a series of cracking sounds. And Lin suddenly thought of something. Tina, Chapter 547. And Lin recalled that he had a pocket on his waist. There was a silver ball in the pocket, and there was a little fairy within the silver ball. He didn't receive any response after calling out Tina's name, but the sound of something cracking did not stop. It was quite clear that something extraordinary was about to happen. Bam! The clothes on the side of Lin's waist exploded into pieces. This was indeed an extraordinary event. Everyone turned to look at Lin's waist with astonishment etched on their faces. There, a silver ball was hovering in midair, emanating a dazzling light. What's that? Merlin's eyes widened. Master laid an egg. Did he realize that he was going to die? So he chose to extend his life through this method? Cassidy was astonished. Humans are mammals, not oviparous animals. Thank you. And Lin gave Cassidy an earnest explanation. With another crisp, shattering sound, the silver sphere finally turned into fragments and fell to the ground. An extremely exquisite and beautiful figure appeared in front of everyone. She wore a white dress, and her skin was translucent and translucent. Her semi-transparent golden wings glowed with specks of starlight, and her emerald eyes were as translucent as gems. She had a sharp nose and ears, pink lips, and a curvaceous figure. Every single part of her body was impeccably perfect. Cassidy and Merlin were both rooted to the spot. Even Lin was dumbstruck. And Lin was dumbstruck. He had seen Tina before, but he had never seen such a big Tina. Tina was close to 20 centimeters tall, which was close to 10 times her original size, which meant that she couldn't fit in the palm of his hand. Is that Master's daughter? She's so beautiful. Merlin exclaimed. She must be the daughter of a fairy goddess. Master's genes aren't strong enough to give birth to such a perfect fairy, so her mother must be extremely beautiful, Cassidy analyzed with a serious expression. And Lin was struck by the urge to beat someone up upon hearing this. Tina stared blankly at Lin with her emerald eyes. Huh, Giant Lin, why have you become smaller? Lin, silly boy, it's not that I become smaller, it's that you become bigger. Creatures usually needed a reference to distinguish their sizes. Tina surveyed her surroundings before settling her gaze on Shui Zhantian. When she looked at Shui Zhantian in the past, she felt that he was like a gigantic snowball. Now, however, Shui Zhantian was about the same height as him. Tina was in disbelief. I really did grow up. Giant Lin, you really didn't lie to me. Time really can make us grow up. A vibrant smile appeared on Tina's face as she flew toward Lin and gave him a big hug. This time, it was no longer a mosquito-like hug. Tina wrapped her fair and slender arms around Lin's neck, and her little head bumped into something that was a little hard. And Lin coughed as his Adam's apple throbbed. Ahem, I'm such an honest person. Why would I lie to little Na? By the way, why did your dress grow up as well? He asked in a gentle voice. I don't know. By the way, Giant Lin, you told me that you'd return the things that you kept from me when I grew up. Can I take them now? Tina relaxed her arms and rubbed her forehead with a wide grin. No, you'll only be considered grown up when you're as big as me. And Lin replied in a meaningful and heartfelt voice. Tina nodded with a confused expression. Oh, just as the two of them were conversing with one another, the black tree branch suddenly stabbed toward Lin's heart. A streak of white light imbued with boundless holy energy instantly flashed through the air, pulverizing the oncoming black tree branch into dust. A series of black cracks exuded a chaotic aura as the white light flashed through the air. Tina withdrew her palm as a cold expression appeared on her face. Don't even think about hurting Giant Lin as long as I'm here. The three humans and one beast all drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. Shock, joy, hope. Countless emotions intertwined to form a single word. So cool. Tina, you've already progressed to the return to void stage? Lin was ecstatic. Air. I feel like my cultivation base is indeed higher than before, but what should I call the cultivation base above the holy rank? A thoughtful expression appeared on Tina's face. Great sage. Sky-shattering great sage. Shui Zhantian's eyes lit up as he yelled. Lin, so what kind of vendetta do you have against the heavens? He thought to himself for a moment before replying. We can call you whatever cultivation base we want. Isn't it just a title anyway? Take me, for example. All soul formation stage cultivators have their own domains, but I don't have anything, but I'm still called the soul formation stage. Hence, your return to void stage mighty figure from now on, understand? Tina blinked her emerald eyes. Is that so? Cassidy and Merlin were also astonished. Is that so? Whoosh! A black tree branch opened its sharp proboscis and stabbed towards Shui Zhantian's mouth. Tina didn't even look at it as she thrust a hand through the air, upon which a white streak of light sliced through the air like a sharp sword, instantly pulverizing the tree branch. And Lin came to his senses before speaking in an urgent voice. Let's not talk for now. Our top priority is to get us out of here. All right. Tina nodded with a smile. Outside the black tower, the crimson vein patterns had already been constructed. The canopy in the sky began to peel away, and the countless stars in the sky began to fade as an independent space slowly took shape. The two snow maidens' blue robes were already stained with blood, and a series of ghastly wounds had appeared on their pristine, white skin. The spatial structure of this world has been constructed, and now is the time for the life conversion ceremony. I don't have any time to waste with you. The stocky old man pressed his hands onto the strings of his guqin, and his aura became as vast as the ocean as an extremely terrifying aura began to proliferate forth. Su Jingxiang and Yanhua both wore expressions of despair on their faces. The disparity in power was simply too vast. If it weren't for the fact that they had unleashed all of their trump cards to defend themselves, they would have already died here. However, even after unleashing all of their trump cards, they still weren't able to escape from this place. All they could do was delay their deaths. Another sharp piercing sound was heard as a pink energy arrow drew a dazzling trail in the dark night. With an extremely terrifying speed, it hit the barrier of the black tower. Boom! The energy arrow was kept at bay by the tip of the black tower, and the dazzling energy exploded before dissipating into nothingness. Lu Chuchu gritted her teeth and was just about to slit open her wrist to unleash a mystic technique to sacrifice her blood to the arrow when her sharp yellow eyes suddenly faltered upon seeing the black tower. An expression of astonishment appeared on her face. Tina pulverized all of the black tree branches from Lin and the others before turning to look at the white shards before her with a curious expression. Huh, China Lin, what is this? It looks so beautiful. She extended a hand toward the shard in an attempt to grasp it in her hand. Little Na, don't touch that thing. There's some kind of ceremony going on right now, so it's very dangerous. And Lin yelled. Tina's hand faltered in fright, and she was only an inch away from the shard of the realm core. And Lin heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing this. Touching something like this could trigger a backlash from the spell formation, and if that were to happen, she could even become a sacrificial offering. However, right at this moment, the shard of the realm core suddenly began to tremor. Whoosh! The white shard abruptly flashed before crashing into Tina's body. Everything had happened far too abruptly, and no one had a chance to react. Tina was struck by the shard of the realm core, and the shard melted in her body as she fell to the ground amid a pained groan. The projection of the mighty holy fairy leader suddenly appeared in her green eyes, and she seemed to be chanting something in a low voice. At the same time, a dazzling white light erupted from Tina's body. Little Na, and Lin let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing this as he rushed over to Tina and cradled her in his arms. Chapter 548. Little Na, are you all right? And Lin asked in a panicked voice. Tina didn't reply. Her chest rose and fell as she panted heavily with a hand clasped over her chest. Cassidy, Merlin, and Shui Zhantian gathered around her with all sorts of expressions on their faces. The realm core can fuse into one's body. What's going on? Merlin's eyes widened with incredulity. My 30 milliliters of blood is gone. Cassidy's face was filled with grief. Is the heaven-shattering sage finally going to take that step? Shui Zhantian asked with a grave expression. The white light gradually dimmed, and Tina's breathing also gradually calmed down. It appeared that she was no longer in pain. She opened her teary eyes and sobbed as she curled up her legs in Lin's arms. Jine and Lin, did I do something wrong? And Lin patted Tina's head with a smile. I'm glad you're all right. Let's get out of here. Outside the black tower, the white pillar of light that shot up from the bottom of the tower suddenly dissipated. The stocky elderly man who was just about to unleash his voice of slaughter to kill the two snow maidens suddenly stiffened, and he turned around with great difficulty as a defeated expression appeared on his face. What happened? Did I fail? No, the aura of the realm core has disappeared. The lanky old man turned to look at the tower in a daze, his eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. Everything had happened far too abruptly, and both of them were caught completely off guard. The defenses of the Black Tower had not been breached, but they had overlooked the fact that the upheaval had occurred from within. The sky began to shatter like a pane of glass that had lost its support before disappearing into thin air, revealing the boundless starry sky in the distance. The crimson formation on the ground also began to dim, and the light slowly faded away. Only the cries of ghosts continued to reverberate throughout the entire city, just like before. The realm-piercing nail transformed into a crimson line that shattered the Black Tower's protective spell formation. One figure after another flew out from the Black Tower, and Lin, Tina, Cassidy, Merlin, as well as Shui Zhantian, who was holding Qin Sheng, Mia, and Tobias in his mouth. After the fragment of the realm core was devoured by Tina, the terrifying illusionary realm seemed to crumble on its own, and the three returned to void stage mighty figures who had been trapped in the illusionary realm all awakened. They weren't stupid. After looking around, they roughly understood the situation. Thus, they all had different expressions on their faces. Have they been rescued? No, they might not necessarily have been rescued. The Lightwing clan returned to void stage mighty figure. Qin Sheng's expression darkened as he looked at the two blood tribe cultivators beside him. Tobias chortled with glee. Cassidy, Merlin, well done. Not only did you save me, but you also successfully captured two enemy mighty figures. I'll be sure to report this to Emperor Yi Deng and have him reward you handsomely. Mia's eyes were downcast, but she was looking at Lin with a contemplative expression on her face. The dark realm vines binding their bodies possessed extremely fearsome sealing power, so they were still incapacitated. If they wanted to regain their freedom, they would most likely have to rely on external forces to get rid of these dark realm vines. Cassidy, hurry up and get rid of these annoying black vines for me, Tobias commanded. However, what surprised him was that Cassidy turned a deaf ear to his words. He faltered slightly before turning toward Tina. As for Lin, he had already automatically ignored him. What could a soul formation stage cultivator do? Could it be that this fairy was the true leader of this team? Tobias was just about to speak to Tina when the two red-robed elderly men in the distance both turned toward Tina as boundless killing intent erupted from their bodies. Who are you? Why have you suddenly appeared here? The stocky elderly man asked with a menacing expression. Where's the fragment of the realm core? The tall and thin elderly man clenched his fists tightly, clearly unable to maintain his composure. I don't know. The fragment of the realm core suddenly disappeared, and Lin replied with a confused expression. I saw it quite clearly. It seems like it tore through space and fell into chaos. Cassidy chimed in with a serious expression. Everyone else remained silent. Who the hell would admit to something like that? If he really admitted it, wasn't it obvious that he was telling the two old men to come and hit me? That was a blatant mockery. Therefore, at this time, playing dumb and playing Tai Chi was the way to go. It was all thanks to the arrival of Lin and the others that the two returned to Void Stage Snow Maidens were able to catch their breaths. Lu Dongbein's lips were still stained with blood, and he was still dizzy from being punched by the tall and thin elderly man. He flared up with rage at the sight of Enlin being sandwiched between two blood tribe cultivators. Be ****. Release Enlin, or I'll kill you with my sword. Merlin faltered slightly before pointing at himself. Are you talking about me? And you? Lu Dongbin pointed his long sword at Cassidy. Cassidy, don't worry, Enlin, I'll be sure to protect you. A warm smile suddenly appeared on Lu Dongbin's face, as if he was trying to reassure Enlin. Don't worry, Senior Lu, we're all on the same side. Enlin was really afraid that Lu Dongbin would charge up and kill his underlings, so he hurriedly offered an explanation. What did you say? Lu Dongbin's expression faltered. As you can see, they're my servants, Enlin replied. Everyone instantly fell silent. Cassidy and Merlin nodded with earnest expressions. Enlin is our master. We're all on the same side. Lu Dongbin, his body suddenly swayed slightly, and he rubbed his head before looking up into the sky. What a terrifying, illusionary realm. When did I fall for it? Wow. You're so awesome, Giant Enlin. Even my two brothers and sisters have become your servants. An adorable smile appeared on Tina's face as she perched on Enlin's shoulder like a little bird. Aside from the two red-robed elderly men, everyone else turned to look at Enlin, and all of them drew sharp intakes of breath. The situation was very clear now. Enlin was the leader of the team. So he's Enlin from the battle at the Vermilion Bird Sect? He really is unfathomably powerful. Su Jingxiang looked at the handsome man with a hint of awe and veneration in her eyes. His calm and collected demeanor toward that tall and thin elderly man is already very impressive, Yin Hua chimed in. There was actually something that she didn't say, and that was, if it weren't for the fact that Enlin had led his team out of the Black Tower in time, they would most likely have died here. In a sense, it could be said that Enlin had saved them. Tobias was the most astonished of all. He stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before his eyes, feeling as if his mind had been turned to mush. Cassidy and Merlin, who were revered by countless Blood Tribe citizens in the Dark Marshlands, had become the servants of a soul formation stage cultivator. Even an illusionary realm couldn't be this **king ridiculous. In the end, Tobias turned to Enlin, and his lips trembled, but he didn't know what to say. Qin Sheng heaved a faint sigh of relief. The human race was on good terms with the Lightwing clan, so he was sure that he had been saved. Sure enough, Tina seemed to have received Enlin's voice transmission, and she nodded lightly before waving a hand. A white light imbued with the power of destruction shot forth from her palm, instantly pulverizing the dark realm vine around Qin Sheng. The leader of the Lightwing clan returned to Void Team. Qin Sheng had been freed. This was the clearest declaration that Enlin was indeed the leader of this team. Just as everyone was in a state of shock, the two red-robed elderly men sprang into action. Their target was the core of this team, Enlin. Chapter 549. The tall, skinny old man abruptly charged toward Enlin as he let loose an enraged roar and launched a fist with all his might. His fist was enshrouded in golden flames, and the power imbued within it made the entire space tremor. This was his full power attack. It was quite clear that he was going to kill Enlin on the spot. He didn't know where the fragment of the realm core was, but he knew that the only thing he could do now was to kill everyone here, even if it meant leaving behind only a corpse. The tall, skinny old man was extremely fast, but when he unleashed his attack, an extremely domineering white sword projection pierced through the air toward his back. Lu Dongbin finally sprang into action upon seeing the tall, skinny old man's actions. However, to his surprise, a determined and vicious expression appeared on the tall, skinny old man's face as he made no attempt to evade the sword projection behind him. Instead, his fist was already crashing down upon Enlin. The fist grew larger and larger in Enlin's eyes, and the entire space around him seemed to have been frozen solid, leaving him with nowhere to run. Right at this moment, a white feather flashed through the air, and a figure instantly appeared before him. A golden ring revolved at the very front, reversing the monstrous power behind the fist. Boom! The fist was imbued with earth-shattering power, and the golden ring tremored violently as boundless power was reversed into the ground, creating a massive crater over a kilometer in diameter. However, the golden flames, enshrouded by the tall, skinny old man's fist, pierced through the golden ring before striking Qin Sheng's chest with devastating power, burning a massive hole into his chest. PFFF. Qin Sheng swayed slightly, as if he was about to collapse to the ground. Seeing as you're going to take my fist for him, then die. The tall, skinny old man had initially planned to spare the return to Void Stage Mighty Figure's life, so that he could use him to reincarnate all the ghosts in the new Qilu city. However, the whereabouts of the fragment of the realm core was now unknown, and he was no longer in the mood to do so. The white sword projection also punctured the tall, skinny old man's body at this moment, tearing a hole into his heart. Lu Dongbin's pupils contracted upon seeing this. There wasn't even any flesh or blood in the hole, as if everything was just an illusion. Right at this moment, the tall, thin old man had already turned around and unleashed another punch. The terrifying power of the punch caused Lu Dongbin to vomit blood again as he stumbled back. I see, so you're also ghosts. Lu Dongbin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with a hint of shock and pity on his face. Golden flames erupted from the old man's fists once again. We shouldn't have to bear this sin in the first place. I have to save this city that I once protected. I have to lead them away from this world. The strings hummed softly, and suddenly a sound spread throughout the world. The short and stout old man in red stroked the zither, and an extremely sorrowful melody reverberated throughout the world. The struggle of thousands of years, the endless loneliness and despair, calamity descended upon all living creatures. The extreme prosperity instantly turned into dust, and death inexplicably descended. Flesh and blood fell apart, and bones were buried underground. However, they could not transcend. Why? What did we do wrong? Confusion, fear, resentment, despair. The ghost wandered around the ancient city all day long, repeating everything that had happened when he was alive. It seemed like the prosperity of yesterday had not changed at all. The stars were obscured again, and a rain of blood poured down from the sky. Lin felt as if countless people were screaming in despair in his mind, and his consciousness trembled violently as he felt a rush of dizziness. Not only him, but all of the return to Void Stage Mighty Figures present felt as if their minds were about to explode. An extremely terrifying mental attack swept through heaven and earth, imbued with the grief and indignation of the billions of living creatures in the city. The short and stout old man's AoE attack had caused everyone to fall for it. Wah! They're so pitiful. A cry that was pleasing to the ear like an aureole pierced through the countless cries of despair, and like a ray of light in the darkness, it clearly entered everyone's ears. And Lin clasped his head in his hands before turning to look at Tina. Tina sniffled as she wiped tears from her eyes. Her green eyes glowed with a white light, and the fragmented object in her pupils was like a mirror, reflecting the entire world. Within the mirror was a bustling city with countless people living busy yet contented lives. Outside the mirror was a dilapidated ancient city, and countless ghosts wandered between heaven and earth with nowhere to go. The white fragment in her green eyes was a mixture of reality and illusion, as if it was a fusion of reality and illusion. Tina's body then shuddered slightly, and a brilliant light erupted from her body. A pillar of light rose into the sky with her body at the center, tearing through the rain of blood in the sky. Then a white vortex appeared in the sky, which enshrouded the entire city with boundless suction force. The two red-robed old men's eyes widened as they stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before their eyes. This is the aura of the fragment of the realm core, the tall, old man murmured. The ice doll in Yanhua's hand pointed at Tina as it yelled incessantly. Yanhua was quite annoyed, and she immediately flattened the ice doll. I can sense that the fragment of the realm core has already fused as one with that fairy. What an enviable opportunity this is. A bitter smile appeared on Su Jingxiang's face. Within Qi Lu City, countless wandering ghosts began to fly toward the white vortex in the sky. Even the two red-robed old men could sense the suction force emanating from the fragment of the realm core. Tina looked at the two red-robed old men and spread open her arms with tears in her eyes. Grandpa L.V. Chung, Grandpa Luo Chung, thank you for protecting me. Go home, I'll come to pick you up. Her white silk dress danced in the air like a beautiful white lotus in the night sky. Tina's eyes shone with a faint light that reflected the heaven and earth. At that moment, she was like a saintess who had come to receive all living beings. The two red-robed old men saw the bustling Qi Lu City in Tina's eyes. It was a city that was so realistic that it made them shed tears, and there were many ghosts descending from the sky before disappearing under the dazzling sun. So that's how it is. A mirror of heaven and earth, turning illusory into reality. So the world core really can do that. Although it's different from us creating a new world, it's indeed a good place to return to. The tall, thin old man's body was already slowly floating up. The stocky old man put away his guqin as a smile of relief appeared on his face. Who would have thought that we would be the ones to be saved in the end? The tall old man nodded before turning to Tina as he opened his mouth. Tina faltered slightly before quickly regaining her composure. All of the ghosts in Qi Lu City flew toward the white vortex in the sky before merging into the fragment of the realm core in Tina's eyes through the pillar of white light. The two red-robed old men were relieved after seeing all of the ghosts fly into the vortex, and they no longer resisted the suction force as they flew toward the vortex of their own volition. Old LV, we've been partners for so long, so I'll be looking forward to seeing you in the future, the stocky old man said with a smile. Of course. Remember to eat more when you get to that world, old LV. Otherwise, I might not be able to recognize you, the tall old man replied with a smile. The two of them slowly sank into the white vortex and disappeared. The pillar of light slowly disappeared, and Qi Lu City finally fell completely silent. There were no more wandering ghosts, only the gentle moans of the wind. Tina closed her eyes, and the white shards disappeared. Her emerald eyes returned to their usual bright green color. Her petite body swayed slightly and fell towards the ground. Then, she fell into a warm embrace. Well done, little Na, the handsome man praised. A sweet smile appeared on Tina's face. There's still one more treasure. I'll tell you about it later. Chapter 550. And Lin's eyes immediately lit up at the mention of treasures. However, he quickly regained his composure, and his face was as calm as the wind and clouds. The two red-robed elderly men had already left, so it was time to clean up the battlefield. Su Jingxiang and Yin Huan knew that Tina had fused with the fragment of the realm core, but they didn't dare to attack. Setting aside the unfathomably powerful Enlin and the powerful group of cultivators behind him, even Tina's combat prowess wasn't something that they had a chance of winning in their current state. Hence, they made a very decisive decision. White mist and snow enshrouded their bodies as they disappeared from this world. Enlin and the others didn't give chase. Firstly, they didn't possess the terrifying power of the red-robed elderly men, and secondly, they weren't in a good state either. Tina had just unleashed the power of the fragment of the realm core, and her features were a little pale. She sat on Enlin's shoulder with a limp body, as if all of her energy had been sapped away. Lu Dongbin and Qin Sheng were in a much better state. Both of them were severely wounded, and they immediately sat down to meditate after swallowing a pill to stabilize their injuries in case their Tao foundations were affected. Enlin also landed on the ground with Cassidy and the others before swallowing a spirit pill to replenish their energy. Enlin, the development of your forces is too frightening. Lu Chu flew over atop a gust of wind, and the tips of her toes tapped lightly against the ground as she descended gracefully like a butterfly. She wore a seductive smile on her face as she stared at Enlin with a pair of sharp eyes filled with curiosity. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. That can't be helped. I'm too charismatic, so everyone wants to follow me. Merlin rolled his eyes and didn't say anything. However, Cassidy pulled out her white longsword from her spatial magic tool and stared at Tobias with a scorching light in her eyes. She seemed to be plotting something. A chill ran down Tobias' spine, but he didn't say anything. He had already figured out the situation he was in. He had fallen into the hands of the humans, and the two blood tribe returned to void stage mighty figures had already betrayed him. Furthermore, they had become the servants of a soul formation stage cultivator. This was simply an extremely bizarre horror story. Wow, you're so awesome. Lu Chu seemed to have already grown accustomed to Enlin's boasting, and she nodded before turning toward Tina. She poked Tina's delicate little face with a curious expression. Little fairy, how come you've also grown bigger? Because I've grown up, Tina replied with a wide grin. Lu Chu's lips twitched. Well, both of her questions were answered with nonsense, and she felt that she couldn't continue. Like master, like pet. She hugged the soft and fluffy Shui Meng Meng tightly in her arms, sighing in her heart that her pet beast was still the most considerate. Enlin waited until his blood energy was fully replenished before dripping some blood onto Cassidy's white longsword. Cassidy made her way over to Tobias with a scorching light in her eyes, and a mysterious smile appeared on her face, sending chills running down Tobias' spine. This is a blade smeared with poison, Cassidy said as she stuck out her sexy little tongue and licked the blade. Slap. Enlin delivered a karate chop to Cassidy's head. If you keep licking, you're going to lose your holy blood reward. Enlin warned in a cold voice. Cassidy pursed her lips before turning to Tobias again and raising her sword. Tobias immediately yelled in a panicked voice. What are you doing? I'm telling you, if you dare to do anything to hurt me, Emperor Yi Deng will never forgive you. He's going to make you suffer a punishment that's 1,000 times more painful than death. Cut the crap. I'm trying to purify your filthy life form. You're getting off too easy. Cassidy rolled her eyes with displeasure as she slashed a massive gash into Tobias' chest with her sword. Blood splattered through the air. Tobias groaned in pain as he gritted his teeth and glowered at Cassidy. All of a sudden, his entire body shuddered, as if he had fallen into extreme agony. Immediately afterward, his eyes became glazed over, and a peculiar flush appeared on his face. Lu Chu made her way over to Enlin with astonishment on her face. Poison Lord, are you going to poison him to death with your blood? He's a return to Void Stage Blood Tribe Mighty Figure. Even a return to Void Stage Mighty Figure can't withstand your blood poison? I'm not going to poison him to death, but he'll be very loyal to me in the future. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. Lu Chu looked at Enlin with confusion on her face. She then seemed to realize something, and she abruptly turned toward Cassidy and Merlin before turning toward Tobias, upon which she drew a sharp intake of breath. This couldn't be. Tobias had already opened his eyes, and there was a healthy flush on his face. He looked at the two blood tribe mighty figures before turning his gaze toward Enlin. No wonder. I feel like my life form has been elevated to a higher level. I understand now. Enlin wielded his evil-slaying sword and instantly sliced the dark realm vine around Tobias into countless pieces. Establish a slave contract with me, and I'll give you a chance to obtain my holy blood again. A hesitant expression appeared on Tobias' face, and his entire body stiffened on the spot, as if he was engaged in an extremely intense internal conflict. If you don't want to, then piss off. Otherwise, you'll have to fight over the holy blood with us. Cassidy harumphed coldly. We can't let him piss off. We have to kill him so that he doesn't report back to us, Merlin said with a serious expression. Tobias, all right, I'll do it. Tobias's furrowed brows suddenly relaxed. For the holy leader to possess such holy blood, I'm sure you'll become an unprecedented figure in the future. It won't be beneath me to be your servant. Tobias's words were very convincing, and Enlin's eyes lit up upon hearing this. You're calling me the holy leader? That's a good title. He turned toward Cassidy and Merlin. Don't call me master from now on. Call me the holy leader. Cassidy and Merlin's faces convulsed slightly, and they nodded with difficulty. Yes, holy leader. The rest was quite simple. He told Cassidy and Merlin to piss off before releasing his blood essence to secure the master contract. Everything was done in an extremely smooth and practiced manner. Unlin then told Tobias about the reward for the holy blood and released 5 milliliters of holy blood to Cassidy on the spot. Cassidy tasted the holy blood with a blissful expression, and Tobias and Merlin were extremely envious. Finally, Unlin exchanged 3 milliliters of holy blood for Tobias' storage ring. Tobias' weapon was an immortal tool, so Unlin didn't take it. Instead, he took all of Tobias' other belongings with him. Tobias was extremely touched. Lu Chu was completely dumbstruck. She couldn't believe that something like this could be done. Unlin, why you're way too terrifying. Lu Chu couldn't help but exclaim. Shui Zhantian sneered. Don't make a fuss over nothing. My master is a being who transcends the 9 heavens, so it's only natural that he would be able to make them submit to him. Didn't you say we were going to fight together? Just a few days ago, we were still struggling in the ancient divine division, but a few days later, you're already the ruler of the Void Star section. This world is insane. Lu Chu looked up into the sky and sighed with emotion. A faint smile appeared on Unlin's face. A person has to learn to set a goal to strive for. Only then will they become bad *SS without even realizing it. For example, Lu Chu asked, for example, I can set a small goal and earn 100 golden realm essence crystals. Unlin suggested with a smile. Lu Chu's chest tightened. Hee, why don't you say earn 100 million first? Unlin stroked his chin. 1 golden realm essence crystal is equivalent to 1,000,000 spirit stones. So 100 golden realm essence crystals would be 100 million spirit stones. You're right. Lu Chu felt like she and Unlin were from 2 completely different worlds, and she was going to develop high blood pressure if she continued to chat with him. Unlin sorted through the items he had plundered from Tobias' storage ring with an elated expression on his face. 2 golden realm essence crystals, 5 red realm essence crystals, 3 blue realm essence crystals, 25 white realm essence crystals, 1,300,000 spirit stones, 30 spirit pills, 12 spirit fruits, 7 spirit tools, and 3 immortal fruits. The immortal fruits were 6th grade Dark Wind immortal fruits, which granted the user the power of Dark Wind for a short period of time, thereby drastically increasing their speed. Unlin tidied up these items before turning his gaze toward Mia, who had remained silent this entire time. This spirit fish clan mighty figure was technically an enemy of the human race, so how should he deal with her? Chapter 551. Mia detected Unlin's gaze, and she raised her head with a slight smile. She was extremely beautiful, so her smile was also very beautiful. A pair of clear and spirited blue eyes added a lot of charm to her smile. Thank you, young Master Unlin, for saving me. Even though Mia was bound by the Dark Realm Vine, she still tried her best to bow slightly and salute humbly. Unlin didn't say anything, and his gaze wandered over Mia's body. Mia's blue dress was quite short, and it revealed her slender waist, which was as slender as a willow tree branch. Below that was her long and slender blue fishtail, which was smooth and exquisite. Her figure was really good. Mia seemed to have noticed Unlin's gaze, and a blush appeared on her face. However, she quickly suppressed this shyness. It wasn't strange for others to be in awe of her beauty. Where is it? Unlin asked with furrowed brows. Mia was a little dazed, and she looked at Unlin with a confused expression. I looked all over your body, and I didn't see any spatial storage magic tools. Tell me honestly, where did you put it? Unlin threatened. Could it be that he was looking at my body just now to find a storage artifact? Mia didn't know whether to rejoice or feel sad. She looked at Unlin with a complicated expression. My left earring is... Unlin came to a sudden realization. No wonder he didn't find any accessories that looked like magic tools. It was an earring, so it was hidden well. He happily took off Mia's earring and refined it. 1 golden realm essence crystal, 3 red realm essence crystals, and 10 green realm essence crystals. 750,000 spirit stones, 3 spirit tools, 30 spirit pills, and a bunch of seafood. and Lin furrowed his brows. So poor. Mia's face convulsed slightly, but she maintained her smile. And Lin thought for a moment before taking off Mia's right earring and refining it. He was disappointed to discover that it wasn't a spatial storage magic tool. You really are this poor. Mia, and Lin thought for a moment before drawing his evil-slaying sword and pointing it at Mia as killing intent began to emanate from his body. Mia's expression changed slightly, and she begged, "Please don't kill me." "Sure, then establish a slave contract with me." And Lin nodded. Mia pursed her lips tightly, and there was a look of extreme resistance on her face. I can't do it." "Oh, you have to realize that we're enemies, so give me a reason not to kill you." And Lin was never one to show mercy to his enemies. If he let Mia go this time, what if she killed him the next time they met? Mia hesitated momentarily before replying, "I'll give you a piece of information in exchange for my life. I know of a mystic realm that has been deduced from the previous explorations of the ancient monsters of the West Sea. There might be a huge amount of realm essence crystals there. It's just that the guardian beast of the mystic realm is too powerful for me to break through. However, I can guarantee that there are definitely a lot of realm essence crystals there. I can bring you there. How can I believe what you're saying?" And Lin asked with a hint of interest. It had to be said that any information regarding realm essence crystals would be able to move him. "I can swear an oath in the name of the ancient monster patriarch," Mia replied with a serious expression, and Lin turned toward Cassidy and the others. "The West Sea Spirit Fish Clan swears an oath to the ancient monster patriarch. Even returned to void stage mighty figures must abide by this oath. Otherwise, their Tao foundation will crumble." Tobias nodded. "All right, you can swear the oath now." And Lin paused for a moment before adding, "You have to swear an oath as well. You can't attack us or any other human beings in the ancient Tai Chu realm." Mia immediately nodded without any hesitation. After swearing the oath, Mia regained her freedom. A joyful smile appeared on her face as she bowed again. "Thank you, young master and Lin, for saving my life." As an enemy, her gesture was extremely appropriate regardless of whether it was sincere or insincere, and Lin couldn't muster up the slightest bit of disgust toward her. After a while, Lu Dongbin and Qin Sheng finally stabilized their injuries and stood up from their meditation. Lu Dongbin turned toward Lin to discover that he was surrounded by 3 blood tribe mighty figures. Even Tobias, who had been quite hostile toward him a moment ago, was now treating him with reverence and respect. This was an extremely beautiful scene. He was in a daze. As expected of the #1 supremely talented cultivator of the Celestial Court. Even his underlings were all returned to void stage mighty figures from the enemy forces. This was going to defy the natural order. He had initially thought that he was going to protect Lin after encountering him. But now it seemed like he was the one being protected. For some reason, he recalled what the Black Dragon had said. It was Lin who had killed it. Lu Dongbin didn't dare to think any further, and he immediately made his way over to greet Lin. Qin Sheng also fell into a daze at the sight of the Blood Tribe, the human race, and the West Sea ancient monsters. He didn't know what he should be feeling at this moment. Everything that had happened seemed to be because of the young man who was surrounded in the center. And Lin. Oh, I remember now. Shirley had mentioned him before. He was the cultivator who had performed brilliantly during the Tao Exchange Conference of the 4 Powers a year ago. But why had he come to the Void Star section to perform brilliantly now? His rate of growth was way too terrifying. Qin Sheng sighed with emotion before making his way over to express his gratitude to Lin for saving his life. That's right. If it weren't for Lin, he would most likely have already perished here. After learning that Lin was in dire need of Golden Realm Essence crystals, Qin Sheng immediately pulled out 3 Golden Realm Essence crystals from his storage ring as a token of gratitude. Lin was ecstatic. He felt like this big brother angel was both handsome and easygoing, and he happily accepted the gift. Lu Dongbin also pulled out 2 Golden Realm Essence crystals from his storage ring, saying that he was returning the favor to the Black Dragon. And Lin didn't know whether to laugh or cry after hearing Lu Dongbin's words, but he still accepted the gift with a smile. Lu Chu was almost drooling at the sight of this. And Lin had obtained 5 more Golden Realm Essence crystals in the blink of an eye. This was an extremely fortuitous opportunity. And Lin, why do you need so many Golden Realm Essence crystals? Can you give me one? I'll exchange it for a Realm Essence crystal of the same value, Lu Chu said as she blinked at Enlin with anticipation in her eyes. Enlin chuckled and turned her down in a roundabout manner. No, Lu Chu. Why? I told you, my goal is to collect 100 Golden Realm Essence crystals, and that's nowhere near enough. Enlin replied with a solemn expression. Lu Dongbin laughed heartily. You must be joking, Mr. Enlin. Perhaps all of the Realm Essence crystals in the Return to Void Realm combined won't even amount to 100 Golden Realm Essence crystals. Enlin heaved a forlorn sigh. That's why I said there's still a long way to go. I've only collected 40 Golden Realm Essence crystals so far. His storage ring flashed as he spoke, and 40 Golden Realm Essence crystals appeared in his storage ring. In that instant, golden light lit up the entire sky, and the space within a radius of over 50 kilometers became viscous. Lu Dongbin and Qin Sheng's eyes widened as they drew sharp intakes of breath. Mia and Tobias stared blankly at the Golden Realm Essence crystals hovering in the air, unable to utter a single word. Cassidy and the others knew that Enlin wouldn't accept any Golden Realm Essence crystals, but they were still stunned into silence after seeing Enlin release all of his Realm Essence crystals. Lu Chu's legs gave out from under her, and she almost knelt to the ground. Enlin was extremely satisfied at the sight of everyone's expressions. Chapter 552. Enlin was starting to fall in love with the feeling of flaunting his wealth. Aside from absorbing energy, the Golden Realm Essence crystals could also be used to flaunt. After flaunting his wealth to his heart's content, he stowed the Golden Realm Essence crystals away with satisfaction. Everyone felt as if the blinding golden light had disappeared, but the dizziness still lingered. They didn't know whether it was because their eyes had been stimulated or because their minds had been stimulated. Lu Dongbin murmured to himself. I forgot to count just then. How many were there again? Qin Sheng massaged his brows. I think it was 40. 14 is 14. 40 is 40. Lu Chu murmured to herself in a daze. Why was there such a monstrous disparity between humans? Mia hung her head in shame. She was a little indignant when Enlin called her poor, but now she was completely convinced. She wasn't even convinced by immortal pills, but she was convinced by filthy rich and... I told you I wasn't lying. My goal is to collect 100 Golden Realm Essence crystals. If you find any extra Golden Realm Essence crystals in the future, you can exchange them with me. I can even purchase them at a premium, Enlin said with a smile. Lu Dongbin nodded. He really believed in Lin's words. He really was going to collect 100 Golden Realm Essence crystals. There's such a huge disparity between Return to Void stage and Soul Formation stage. Something doesn't seem right. He heaved a long sigh before turning to Enlin. What's your plan from now on, Mr. Enlin? Enlin didn't hide anything and told Lu Dongbin and the others about Mia's situation. Lu Dongbin nodded. Seeing as you're going to search for Realm Essence crystals, Enlin, we won't be joining you. For safety's sake, you can come with me, Lu Chu. Lu Chu nodded. This was the Void Star section, after all. With her current power level, it was best for her to be a coward and follow behind a powerful being. Qin Sheng also bade farewell upon hearing this. He still had to go to another region to search for certain treasure. Lu Dongbin, Lu Chu, and Qin Sheng left one after the other, leaving Enlin's group with only Shui Zhantian, Tina, the 3 Blood Tribe mighty figures, and Mia. This was already a power that rivaled an entire ancient power. All right, now we could go dig for treasures, Tina said excitedly. Dig for treasures? Cassidy looked at the little elf with a perplexed expression. Tina didn't say anything else as she flew toward the Black Pagoda and slashed her Heart Lotus Ice sword toward the bottom of the pagoda. The blue sword light formed a crescent moon of frost and snow that was 300 meters long and directly cut the tower from the bottom. Rumble. The tower that had stood for countless years was cut down by a single sword strike because it had lost the support of power. The collapse of the tower caused the ground to shake. Gravel flew everywhere, and smoke and dust filled the air. No one knew what Tina was going to do, but they all followed her. Immediately afterward, they saw Tina digging something on the ground. She quickly dug out a circular pit that was 3 feet deep. Another blue sword light slashed towards the huge crater. With a loud rumble, countless golden lights burst out, and the surrounding space immediately became viscous. Everyone looked at the bottom, and their eyes widened once more. Their faces were filled with shock. At the center of the pit, there was a black object that had been sliced into pieces by the sword projection. Within the object, there were 10 golden realm essence crystals that were glowing with a dazzling light. Around the golden realm essence crystals, there were 30 blue realm essence crystals that glowed with the light of the ocean. They complemented the golden realm essence crystals in the center of the pit. Little Na, you really are a hero to me. And Lin's eyes lit up as he stowed away all of the realm essence crystals into his bag with an elated expression. Tobias, who had only just begun following in Lin, was a little dumbstruck. Is the holy leader really this blessed? Mia's face was filled with confusion, and she couldn't help but ask, so I can obtain so many realm essence crystals just by digging a pit? Do I have some misunderstanding about this world? Phew! We've finally completed half of our target. Let's keep up the good work. And Lin offered words of encouragement. Everyone, oh, that's right, Mia. I hope the mystic realm you told me about won't disappoint me. And Lin turned to the mermaid beside him with anticipation in his eyes. Mia, what can Mia do? She could only force a smile on her face. She couldn't say that she was under too much pressure, could she? These realm essence crystals were most likely going to be used by the 2 red-robed elderly men when they were constructing their realm. However, who would have thought that Tina would save them before they could even construct their realm? In order to repay her kindness, they gave these realm essence crystals to Tina. Thinking about it now, Tina seemed to have taken away all of the 2 red-robed elderly men's belongings. Regardless of whether it was the fragment of the realm core, the realm essence crystals, or even the wandering souls and the red-robed elderly men, she had taken everything away. After taking care of the matters in Qilu City, and Lin and the others set off toward the location that Mia had told them about. Mia led the way, and they were headed toward the Black Sea. The purple grassland bordered the Black Sea, and they had expended a lot of effort to travel from the purple grassland to the realm of dead spirits. Who would have thought that they would have to go back now? What a cruel twist of fate. On the boundless Black Sea, there was a gargantuan island. There were many fluorescent plants on the island. There were red, green, blue, and gold plants, and they lit up the entire island in an extremely dazzling manner, as if it were a bright pearl on the ocean. There was a white cave in the center of the island, and there was a long dragon with a metallic luster outside the cave. Its eyes were crimson, and its body was over 1 kilometer in length. Its aura was extremely vast and terrifying, and the vital energy of heaven and earth surged with its every breath. None of the ferocious beasts on the island dared to come within 5 kilometers of this dragon. Otherwise, they would be killed by a single sneeze. However, within a 10-mile radius of the salamander, there was a black shadow that was sneakily observing it. He had a pair of black wings, bronze-colored skin, and a massive saber hanging from his waist. That's right, he was none other than Dao Yi, who had fled to the Black Sea after being scared away by Lin on the purple grassland. He had discovered this strange island in the Black Sea, and his instincts told him that there was definitely a massive treasure trove here. Not taking into account anything else, just the fact that there was an extremely powerful black dragon guarding the entrance to the White Cave was enough to tell him that there was definitely something extraordinary within the cave. As someone who cherished his life, he had observed the black dragon for a few days, and he had developed a rough understanding of its power. As such, he felt like he had to go back and get reinforcements. He was the one who had discovered the treasure trove, but he had to share it with someone else. He remembered that his teammates were in this area, and if he used his aura detection talisman, he should be able to find them. Right at this moment, a faint ripple suddenly erupted in the air, not far away, immediately following which the space was torn open. Dahlia's heart jolted, and he immediately withdrew his aura. How could this be? There were other Return to Void stage mighty figures who knew about this place. A beautiful mermaid flew out from the spatial crack, and she was followed by 3 black-robed figures with concealed auras. All of them bowed slightly toward the spatial crack, as if they were welcoming an extremely important person. Dahlia's heart jolted with shock upon seeing this. Even though the 4 of them had concealed their auras, Dahlia could still tell that they were Return to Void stage mighty figures. He couldn't help it, as they were all too familiar. There was the Spirit Fish clan mighty figure, Mia, who was of the Return to Void intermediate stage. There were the Return to Void stage Blood Tribe mighty figures, Merlin and Cassidy, as well as the team leader of the Return to Void stage team, Tobias, who was at the pinnacle of the Return to Void intermediate stage. When did the West Sea ancient monsters team up with the Blood Tribe? Also, just what kind of mighty figure was worthy of such humility and respect from them? He was greeted by the sight of a young man in a flowing white robe, holding a white furry ball in his arms, with an extremely beautiful fairy sitting on his shoulder. Dahlia's eyes widened in astonishment upon seeing the man's face. His lips trembled as he uttered an incredulous name. Unlin? Chapter 553. Unlin clicked his tongue in wonder as he looked at the glowing plants on the ground. He picked up his phone and took a photo. The black dragon's habitat is up ahead, and it's guarding a white cave. I'm extremely sensitive to energy, so I can sense the energy fluctuations of the crystal essence crystals within the cave. Mia pointed at a white dot in the distance. Oh, so that's the black dragon? It looks pretty powerful. And Lin nodded as he looked at the black dragon in the distance. He could feel the vital energy surging around it. Mia nodded. I don't know if it's suppressing its cultivation base, but it's at least at the pinnacle of the Return to Void intermediate stage. Furthermore, it's a primordial dragon, so it's even more powerful than the average Return to Void intermediate stage mighty figure. If you really want to tame this black dragon, I can use a binding spell formation to help you. And Lin wasn't afraid of this black dragon. As long as it was a normal life form, then it definitely wouldn't be at the Return to Void final stage. Otherwise, it would suffer backlash from the laws of heaven and earth. Seeing as the black dragon could only unleash power at the pinnacle of the Return to Void intermediate stage, and Lin's team had 2 Return to Void initial stage mighty figures and 2 Return to Void intermediate stage mighty figures, so why would they be afraid of it? Let's go. Show it the power of our team. And Lin spoke with a smile. 5 figures flew toward the black dragon like bolts of lightning. The black dragon sensed their auras, and it raised its head. The black metallic scales on its body opened and closed like flowing black water, and its crimson eyes exuded a menacing cold light. Who would have thought that there would be people who would dare to provoke me? The black dragon opened its mouth with a disdainful sneer. Roar! An earth-shattering dragon roar instantly erupted forth for close to 10 kilometers. Terrifying sound waves swept forth like massive waves, pulverizing the ground and sending all of the nearby plants flying. Even the space around them began to tremor and compress. The expressions of the 3 Blood Tribe cultivators remained unchanged. Cassidy slashed her crimson sword through the air and sliced through the terrifying sound waves. Tobias stepped through the air and leaped through the opening created by the sound wave. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived before the black dragon's head. A sinister, ghostly face appeared on his gauntlets as he launched a ferocious punch downward. The fist tore through the void, and the black fist energy directly bombarded the black dragon's head, causing the entire ground to shake violently. Black Dragon's body was smashed to the ground by the tremendous force. It was at this moment that 1,000-jong tall blood demon formed. Merlin controlled the blood demon formed by the battle souls to unleash a relentless barrage of punches onto the dragon's body. Every single attack was like a huge mountain crashing down. They possessed vast might and boundless strength, and the black dragon's body was almost buried into the ground. Mia, who was responsible for restraining the Blood Tribe cultivators, was given a fright at the sight of the Blood Tribe cultivators' lightning-fast coordination. This level of teamwork was virtually invincible against return to void final stage mighty figures. Dao Yi, who was secretly observing from the side, was completely horrified by this scene. If he was the target of the 3 blood breeds, he would have been dead by now. He looked up at Enlin in the sky with a hint of shock and horror on his face, and he was struck by a sense of profound mystery. How? The black dragon finally realized that his opponent was no ordinary being, and it let loose an enraged roar as dark clouds instantly obscured the sky and gale-force winds swept through the sky. A massive bolt of black lightning over 100 feet in length tore through the air before instantly puncturing the blood demon's head. The battle souls seemed to be extremely fearful of the bolt of lightning, and after the blood demon's head was punctured, countless battle souls dissipated into nothingness. The surviving battle souls also fled in terror, and the blood demon was showing signs of crumbling. The black dragon twisted its body, and its metallic tail swept toward Tobias at an extremely fast speed, leaving only a black afterimage in its wake. Tobias's heart jolted, and he immediately lashed out with both fists toward the dragon's tail. Boom! The collision between the 2 attacks instantly caused heaven and earth to fall silent. Immediately afterward, an extremely violent explosion of energy erupted, pulverizing everything within a radius of close to 10 kilometers. Dahlia's heart jolted with shock, and he hurriedly retreated in order to avoid being caught up in the shockwaves of the battle. At the sight of such a terrifying battle, Tobias's desire to take advantage of the situation for his own personal gain was suddenly reignited. Tobias was not as powerful as the Black Dragon, and the muscles on his arms were torn apart by the terrifying power of the Black Dragon's tail, and his body flew back several dozen kilometers like a cannonball. Right at this moment, several dozen massive pillars of water soared into the sky before transforming into a series of water ropes that swept toward the Black Dragon. The Black Dragon had only just finished swinging its tail when its body was tightly bound by the pillars of water. Mia chanted in the language of the ancient demons, and countless runes appeared within the pillars of water, making them extremely resilient. The extremely powerful binding force even caused the Black Dragon's massive body to falter for a split second. During this split second, a peerlessly sharp crimson sword projection fell from the sky. The sword projection pierced through the clouds, slicing the boundless dark clouds in the sky in half. When the sword fell, a crimson line pierced through heaven and earth, illuminating the entire world with a crimson light. Boom! The sword projection struck the Black Dragon's neck, and a sharp blade projection pierced through the dragon's body, slicing the earth in half. Did it work? Mia stared at the Black Dragon's head with excitement on her face. Cassidy had been accumulating power for this attack for a long time, and it could be said that this was the most powerful attack she had unleashed so far. The Black Dragon didn't evade, nor did it use any spell techniques to defend itself. Thus, it was struck in the neck, and even if it didn't die, it would be severely wounded. The crimson light dissipated, and the Black Dragon's body shimmered with a dark sheen, but there wasn't a single wound on its body. Cassidy was dumbstruck, and even Mia was staring at the Black Dragon with incredulity on her face. That sword strike, just then, was extremely fearsome, and even a return to void final stage mighty figure would be wounded if they didn't put up any defenses. But this Black Dragon was completely unscathed? Is that so hard to understand? A mocking smile suddenly appeared on the Black Dragon's face. I've lived for a long time, and the thing I'm most proud of is my indestructible defenses. You think you can defeat me with those attacks? Stop your wishful thinking. Its body quickly rotated to form a black tornado as it spoke, which pulverized the pillar of water around it. Cassidy was just about to retreat when an extremely fearsome burst of black energy erupted from the tornado, hurtling toward her body with devastating destructive power. This was the Black Dragon's full-force attack, and Cassidy was completely unable to evade it, so she could only grit her teeth and take it head-on. Whoosh! A white figure suddenly appeared before her with a single hand extended forward. The oncoming burst of black energy was suddenly absorbed by a peculiar ripple before erupting again, but this time in the opposite direction. The burst of black energy tore through the tornado before crashing into the Black Dragon's body, and a terrifying explosion tore the ground apart once again. Master! Cassidy's eyes widened as she stared blankly at the figure before her. Call me Holy Leader, and Lin replied before patting Tina's delicate little leg on his shoulder. A white light flashed, and then Lin's body disappeared into thin air. The Black Dragon let loose an enraged roar after being struck by its own attack. Right at this moment, a white light flashed, and then Lin appeared within 100 meters of it. The insignia of a golden eye appeared on his forehead, and ripples began to proliferate before sweeping toward the Black Dragon's body. Divine Plunder Technique. Among the 18 different spell techniques and talents, and Lin had plundered the ability to isolate all things. In that instant, the Black Dragon felt as if it had lost something, and its black, metallic body suddenly dimmed. Chapter 554. A white light flashed, and then Lin disappeared on the spot once again before reappearing over a kilometer away. Tina's spatial teleportation ability was quite useful, and then Lin had managed to catch the Black Dragon off guard by unleashing his Vermilion Bird Mirror and Divine Plunder technique. He immediately yelled to Cassidy and the others, "Attack the Black Dragon! I've already taken away its powerful defensive abilities, so this is a good opportunity." Cassidy and Merlin's expressions both shifted upon hearing this. He could even take away the Black Dragon's defensive abilities? As expected of the Holy Leader, Mia felt that Lin's words were far too unrealistic. However, after seeing the Black Dragon's scales suddenly dim, she had no choice but to believe that this Black Dragon had indeed changed. A massive black fist tore through the clouds before descending from the sky. Tobias, who had been knocked flying by the dragon's tail, returned and launched an extremely powerful punch toward the Black Dragon's head. The punch struck the Black Dragon's head, and its body was smashed into the ground again. At the same time, it threw up a mouthful of blood, staining the ground below it. Mia, Cassidy, and the others' hearts jolted upon seeing this. It really was working. At this moment, everyone was no longer holding back. A blue water formation rose into the sky as the blood demon materialized again. The situation on the battlefield was instantly reversed, and Lin, on the other hand, continued to sit on his black brick and spectate the show from afar. Dahlia's heart was filled with astonishment as he observed from the side. This was the real Lin. He was able to force an extremely powerful Black Dragon into dire straits with just a wave of his hand. Was this something a soul formation stage cultivator could do? A normal soul formation stage cultivator would most likely be scared witless by such a powerful being. But what about him? His expression remained completely calm and tranquil. His steadfast temperament and unfathomable power. It was no wonder that the Dark Knight Monarch had fallen at his hands. The Moonlit Knight Monarch was in great danger. Dahlia could no longer muster up the courage to face Lin head-on. He felt like he had to continue hiding like this in order to survive. After that, he had to give the Moonlit Knight Monarch a warning after getting out of here. Fighting against such a terrifying existence was extremely dangerous. The Black Dragon was continuously beaten up, and fresh blood seeped out of its dragon scales. It looked extremely miserable. Just when everyone thought that it was going to be besieged to death, the dragon scales all over its body suddenly spread open, and its eyes shone with a bright red light, like two small red suns. Its aura instantly skyrocketed. Roar! Its body suddenly swayed in a circle, and the terrifying power distorted the space into a spiral shape. Everyone in the area suffered internal injuries from the violent counterattack, and they all retreated. The black dragon also abruptly pounced toward Lin at this moment. Yes, its current target was Lin. Its defense was broken because of Lin, so only by killing Lin could this situation be resolved. Seeing this, Tina immediately cast a barrier. Lin stopped her. Hurry up and leave this place. I'm invincible during this period of time. Tina instinctively heeded Lin's words and quickly retreated. In contrast, Lin charged directly toward the oncoming black dragon. Compared to the gargantuan black dragon, his figure was extremely minuscule, but his fearless figure was extremely dazzling in everyone's eyes. Mountain-shaking lightning slap, and Lin didn't even get a chance to finish his sentence before his body was slammed into the ground by the dragon's sharp claws. The black dragon wasn't going to hold back, and its claws were extremely powerful, tearing a black rift in space and tearing a gargantuan chasm into the ground. However, Lin rose into the sky again after a single breath. He chortled at the black dragon. Little black brat, your attack really doesn't hurt me at all. Can't you use a little more force? Cassidy and the others were astonished to see Lin in this state, and the black dragon was completely perplexed. How could this be? Roar. It suddenly unleashed a dragon's breath upon Lin, and black flames incinerated the space around it, leaving a trail of black flames in its wake with no end in sight. Lin didn't take evasive measures. Instead, he stood on the spot atop his brick with his hands on his hips. His body was knocked back over a kilometer by the fearsome flames, but he was still standing on the spot, completely unscathed. Tui, are you spitting saliva or flames? There's no heat at all. Lin wore a disdainful expression. The black dragon, Xiaozhe, was completely dumbstruck. Why was this human's defenses even more powerful than his? What are you still standing there for? Take advantage of its weakness and kill it. Lin yelled at the dumbstruck Cassidy and the others. He had taken away the black dragon's ability to isolate all things, and that ability only had a time limit of 10 minutes. He couldn't let the black dragon know about this, so he could only pray that his army could defeat the black dragon within 10 minutes. Only then did Cassidy and the others recover from the shock inflicted upon them by Lin, and they began to attack the black dragon again. The black dragon finally lost all of its battle intent at the sight of the oncoming return to Void Stage mighty figures. It was unable to kill its core members, and its most prized defense had been taken away. If things continued like this, it was going to lose for sure. It was too strange. It was really too strange. Who would have thought that would be crushed by a soul formation stage human cultivator? Xiaozhe stared deeply at Lin, as if he was trying to commit all of Lin's features to memory. Xiaozhe, will definitely pay you back for this. The black dragon opened its cavernous mouth and roared at Lin. This roar was imbued with the boundless might of a dragon from its bloodline, and a black sound wave swept toward Lin with an extremely fearsome might. It wasn't hoping that this attack would be able to harm Lin, but it was determined to crush Lin with its aura alone. Lin didn't plan to evade. He was immune to the power of all things, so there was no need for him to evade this attack. However, an unexpected turn of events suddenly took place at this moment. The ring on his finger, which was glowing with a faint yellow light, suddenly began to tremor violently, as if it had been stimulated by something. Immediately afterward, a vast and powerful will suddenly burst forth from within Lin's consciousness, dispelling all of the dark clouds in the sky. The projection of a black dragon appeared in the starry sky. This was an indescribably mighty being, and its appearance made all of the stars in the sky dim. The golden light in its eyes seemed to be the only color between heaven and earth. Boundless ferocious might enshrouded the entire island, and it felt as if the entire island would be reduced to dust with a single flick of its finger. Are you trying to intimidate me? The projection of the black dragon's words resonated with the great Tao of heaven and earth, striking fear into the hearts of onlookers. Xiao's body went limp at the sight of this black dragon projection, and he collapsed to the ground in fright. He kowtowed incessantly. "Senior, I had eyes but failed to recognize you. I didn't mean to offend you. Please spare me." Xiaozi was also a black dragon, But compared to this mighty being, it was like comparing a giant dragon to an earthworm. They weren't even on the same level. He was completely petrified, and he could only kowtow incessantly as he begged for mercy. The black dragon projection remained silent as its body slowly dissipated. And Lin's consciousness was struck by a stabbing pain, which seemed to be the after effect of summoning that will. The stars in the sky appeared first, but everyone was completely dumbstruck. They still hadn't recovered from the scene that had just unfolded. And Lin also didn't think that the ring that Yang Yuan had given him would unleash its power at a time like this. Not only was Xiaozi scared out of his wits, but everyone else was also shocked. No one dared to say anything in fear of being slapped to death by that being. Xiaozi wiped the cold sweat off his forehead with lingering fear as he looked at Enlin with a grateful expression. "Thank you for sparing my life, Senior." Enlin,